Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Got Filled by Range and Became the Dark Fox movie. Before we start, please go support Tricarius21 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Naruto is a male. A poor boy, orphaned from birth, was held back by a terrible childhood trauma that brought him to the brink of an emotional scar that completely changed him. After contempt comes anger, with an enormous thirst for revenge, which turns the boy into the monster they so feared. As he continued to grow, he continued to suffer, and this is the story of the boy who became a heartless monster, one who seeks only to fill the remains of his heart with darkness, and fill his broken mind with the most terrible desires imaginable. The story of the Dark Fox begins here. Dark origin. The ninja world, the world that began once humans began to harness a power that ran through them called chakra. This power, which runs through most, but not all, humans, is simply the combination of physical and spiritual energy, which is why those who can use it are those who can become ninjas. Ninjas, humans who can harness chakra, allowing them to use skills that civilians cannot, and who enjoy special abilities such as improved endurance, development, strength, speed, agility, among others. However, chakra also means power, and that only served as a motivation for men's hearts to be filled with greed and envy, which is why ninjas were born for war and the glory within it. As long as they left others in nothing or killed them while keeping everything that was theirs, they would undoubtedly use chakra as a weapon. The true origin of the ninja era began here, several centuries after the legendary Rikudo Sannin had passed away and his sons had fought to the death, and their transmigration battle had begun. With all that said, everyone else already knows what was happening in the following centuries as the 9 youngest sons of the Rikudo Sannin, the Bijou, were growing up. Ninjas with the same blood ties then decided to form their own groups based on their family, thus forming the first clans. Clans that later went to war against other clans due to anger, envy, jealousy, and greed, in addition to other factors such as revenge, captivated people, instilling battles and bloodshed throughout the countries. Centuries passed until several allied clans stopped their battles and decided together to have the dream of creating a ninja village within a certain country to protect that country, and, incidentally, carry out missions to improve the economy of the country in which they would stay. This idea was later copied by more clans, and each elemental country built its own ninja village, so 5 great ninja villages were born since then. But bad feelings and desires became reasons, and wars between countries with their respective ninja villages were born. Each village had also obtained power through the 9 Bijou who were the secret children of the Rikudo. Each village had 1 or 2 Bijou in their power, and with them the ability to destroy large areas of the countries. Even so, the Bijou were beings that were not going to be controlled or commanded, which is why they had to be sealed in humans who could contain them inside to use their power. These people, or better called sacrifices, were then called Jinchurikis, beings who were hated not as people but as possible reincarnations of the beasts and were treated like animals. But they all lived solitary lives while also living a psychological terror in their minds when those beasts inside them affected them to the point of driving them insane, where they found the answer in suicide. So dark years passed, and 3 great ninja wars occurred in the world. Thousands died in those 3 eras of battle, and the world only became more dark, while people only became more cruel and vile. But where there is darkness there is light, and that is why there were people who fought for what was good, leading their lives on the path of good. Now then we go directly to where this story really begins, where 2 great heroes were inside a cave outside of a cave. These were Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, both from Konoha, the first ninja village that emerged victorious in the 3rd and last ninja war that has taken place, where now the Uzumaki woman was giving birth in the middle of the forest. But why would a heroine from her village be there instead of one of the best hospitals in her village? The reason is simple. She is a Jinchuriki, and inside her she carries what is called the king of the Bijou, or the strongest Bijou of all, the Kyubi no Yoko. Consequently, the pregnancy became more risky and the Bijou inside her could escape, so being out of the village was the only option. At her side was the blonde Namikaze, who had recently been chosen as the new Kage of his village, which meant that he was their leader in every aspect from civil to military, including the control and surveillance of the clans to the missions imposed on the ninjas. Minato, who from his wife had learned the ninja art of Fuinjutsu that used advanced seals to keep the kyubi inside his wife while she was still in labor, making the contractions more frequent at every moment. Kushina, damn you Minato, I swear once I'm done giving birth, I'll hit you 1,000 times until you've felt all the pain I'm feeling right now. And if you try to escape, I'll take away that thing that makes you a man so you'll never use it again. Minato, Kushi, calm down please, you're almost done, just push a little more. Okay, Mrs. Biwako? Biwako, yes, Kushi-chan, you're almost done, I can already see the head, just push a little harder. Minato, bring some hot towels, okay? Minato, hi Biwako-san. While Minato looked for the towels to keep Kushina's temperature comfortable, old Biwako, wife of the third Hokage, decided to gently but firmly hold the head of the little baby that was coming out of the redhead's interior while she continued pushing, and the little one's shoulders could already be seen. With another 15 minutes of screams, contractions and pushing, Kushina had already expelled almost the entire little infant, who was now being completely taken out by Biwako, who cleaned the newborn without cutting the umbilical cord. Now the red-headed heroine of Kushina could hold her first child in her weak arms and give him the necessary warmth while his temperature was regulated. Biwako then subtly began to cut the umbilical cord in 2 portions, part by part, until there was no risk, and with new scissors she finished cutting the cord that joined mother and child as one and proceeded to close the cut on the newborn, while Minato happily hugged his wife. But a new scream occurred when a collapsing sound rocked the room. The old Biwako now lay lifeless on the ground, while the scissors she used to cut the baby's umbilical cord were stuck in her chest, while her heart had been completely pierced. Kushina could only scream in worry as she saw her son, whom she had recently named Naruto, in the hands of a strange stranger with a strange mask protecting his face. Kushina was about to do something when she saw the masked man's scarlet blood-red eyes and fell unconscious, trapped in a genjutsu just like the beast inside her. Minato, who had to throw himself towards the masked man, had to change his direction when he had thrown the newborn Naruto in another direction to kill him, but this did not happen thanks to the fact that his father saved him in a matter of seconds. But now Kushina was kidnapped by the masked man, while now they disappeared in a kind of vortex that devoured them, leaving Minato alone with little Naruto, while he could only get out of the place where they were and appreciate that everyone else was dead. In an unknown part of the forest above the mountain where the faces of all the Hokages are engraved in stone, a strange, newly known whirlwind appeared while a redhead began to get up to find herself very weak and standing on the ground of the forest. She saw him. The same subject who previously had her son and now had her as if nothing was there, but seeing his eyes again was her biggest mistake, because now this subject saw directly the kyubi that fell under his mercy. With the seal quite weakened, the subject did not take long to act, and quickly made hand seals until he summoned in the middle of the entire village the same creature that was feared for being the most powerful of all. The kyubi was free, and unlike the others who knew nothing, it was being controlled, and its only mission was to destroy everything. The great orange fox then, along with its 9 tails, began to sweep and destroy everything in its path as if it were nothing, while the ninjas of the village went to fight the beast even if it meant their death. Ninjas and civilians alike were killed en masse while the buildings were totally destroyed. Then the third, along with a group of his best ninjas at his disposal, the Anbu. Even so, not all the ninjas of the different levels, the Hokage, the Anbu and the summoning of the Sandaime Hokage were able to stop the creature, while the master who controlled it now fought against the Yandaime Hokage, who had gone to recover his wife, who was now resting while protecting little Naruto in her arms. But although they were evenly matched due to the very rare and unique ability of the masked man to turn his body intangible, the strategies of the Yandaime, in addition to his great speed given by his Hiraishin jutsu, granted him victory to hit the mysterious man's back with his signature jutsu, causing him to retreat, and the kyubi to be released from his control. But now that the beast regained control and realized that it was free, it was not going to let it be locked up again. Therefore, it began to gather its chakra in its mouth, while a purple sphere grew and a power as destructive as no other began to be felt throughout the village. If the village received that attack, then they would all die, so some began to flee for their lives while the attack had been launched. But this orb magically disappeared, or so most thought, until they felt the explosion several kilometers outside the village, while a blond man wearing a white suit with red that said Yandaime on the back arrived at the place, accompanied by his fragile wife, who had just given birth and had the baby in her hands. Minato knew that the only way to stop this was to seal the Kyuubi again, but his wife was very weak and had almost no chakra, so she would not resist being sealed again by the bijou, so he had to make the most difficult decision as a father and as Hokage: seal the beast and his blonde son with red highlights. When Kushina saw what Minato was going to do, she undoubtedly rejected the idea but then had to accept it while her husband prepared the ceremony. The Kyuubi saw that they would try to seal him again, so he would kill everyone there as the first thing. Very weak Kushina was then able to take out the Kekkai Genkai of her Uzumaki clan, golden chains made of chakra capable of containing even the power of a bijou, so the Kyuubi was being retained while Minato now made hand seals and invoked the deity of death, the Shinigami. Minato, Shinigami-sama, please lock one half of the Kyuubi in me while the other half in my son Naruto along with the fox's soul in him. Shinigami didn't say a single word but grabbed his knife while stabbing his stomach, and in turn the same thing happened to Minato, who began to spit blood while now the Kyuubi felt attacked by a spiritual power, and seeing the deity of death he only thought of killing the baby so that it could not be sealed, but his attempts were stopped by Kushina and Minato herself, who gave their lives so that the Kyuubi's claw would not touch the newborn while his forehead filled with the blood of his parents. The soul and half of the Kyuubi now entered the poor baby less than 2 hours old, and a black seal appeared on his stomach, while the red strands of his hair disappeared to become all blonde. But the deity also observed how the little boy's chakra also changed, and some black touches appeared in his chakra as an indicator that he was the bearer of a power more strange and unique than anyone had ever carried before in the world. Shinigami. Now the Sandaime held the little boy in his arms while he just cried and took him to the hospital to be checked out, while the village recovered from the attack and the ninjas searched for survivors. This is the beginning of the one who would be known as the Emperor of the Elemental World. He who will not bow to anyone and will do as he pleases, even if it means killing anyone in his path. This is the story of Uzumaki Naruto, the Yami no Kitsune, Lord of Darkness and the demon reincarnated on Earth. Vile Awakening, Kanahigaku no Sato. The village hidden among the leaves, that village that lies within the land of fire and is also known as the strongest power of all, even though it is a village that considers itself peaceful rather than military, which is why it only goes to war unless absolutely necessary. Despite being peaceful, among the shadows of the village, none of this is true. That poor newborn who had the misfortune of carrying something he didn't have the option to decide was now the reason why the supposedly innocent and peaceful villagers were in truth the true demons who tortured the little blonde boy as he grew up, just as the ninjas of said village tortured and hurt the blonde boy as if he were the Kyuubi himself. The poor blonde then had to grow day by day under pain and torture, but there was one special day a year when things changed to even crueler levels. October 10th, the day the Kyuubi attacked. The same day Naruto was born, is the day when the villagers and ninjas removed their masks of innocence and revealed their true monstrous faces, torturing the blonde until he was left half dead. But how did it become known throughout the village? A secret as important as that inside the little blonde boy lived the great demon known as the nine-tailed fox. The answer is very simple actually. The Hokage's advisors, 3 current civilians who previously served as some of the best ninjas that Konoha had in the past. The intention for them to do that was really not a silly pathetic excuse like love for their country and village as idiots like most civilians would believe. They wanted power, and the best way to get it was by controlling the Jinchuriki of the most powerful bijou. What better way to control like puppet to puppet than how a child hated by all is then accepted in exchange for receiving the affection he never had but also had to turn the child into a ruthless and obedient being to the village. So torturing him and leaving him emotionally scarred at a young age seemed like the best way to effectively weaken a poor child and transform him into a vile, obedient being by attacking his broken mind. It seemed that this strategy wouldn't really work at first glance, since the boy seemed like a happy young man trying to attract attention so he could have some show of affection or not be seen as an unwanted outcast at least. But fate is more ironic than the poor boy could think. For every joke or action the boy made to win over the people of his village, more backfired. The villagers only hated him more while teaching their children that the blonde was bad company, and that they should never go near him. Therefore, the overall result was that the boy was a total hermit, and although there were only 3 exceptions in his life, such as a father and daughter from a food business and the old Kage of the village who was already quite advanced in age, The boy deep down wasn't happy but in a state of total depression and enormous resentment toward the village that mistreated him. The boy they called the little fox or demon never knew the truth of why they called him that until one day around the month of July when he was only 4 years old. One of the biggest beatings he had ever had occurred, leaving him with broken bones from his arm and leg to several ribs, plus some new small scars for his collection. But the reason why this time things went differently is that once the little one collapsed and entered the world of unconsciousness, he arrived at a new place which looked like a sewer where the water reached above his feet and almost his knees while grunts were heard at the bottom of a mysterious passage of the gloomy place. The blonde did not know why he continued walking, but a certain force, also known as curiosity, attacked him so deeply within his being that he could not handle the anguish of knowing what was at the end. What he found at the end of the tunnel was so unexpected and bizarre that a child his age would never imagine such a thing. A prison guarded by a shadow behind the enormous cage doors while enormous, dark, blood-red eyes stared at the little blonde 4-year-old, intent on instilling fear in the tiny visitor's entire being. But despite everything, the little boy didn't seem afraid of the great, monstrous shadow in front of him, and although he trembled a little, he took several steps forward until he was about 3 meters from the bars. Now the blonde could see that the enormous shadow was none other than a huge, majestic, orange-furred fox. But the strange thing was that it had not one but 9 tails, something that seemed extremely strange to him. And with all the innocence and curiosity that invaded him, he asked, "Naruto, Fox-san, why do you have 9 tails instead of 1? Are they just to tickle you? Or do you use them to wrap yourself up, Mr. Fox?" "Fox, disrespectful Gaki, you should have respect. Don't you know who you're standing before? Before the almighty Kyuubi, the strongest bijou of all. That's why I have more tails than my brothers." "Naruto, forgive me Kyuubi-sama, but that's not your real name, right? And I would like you to be reunited with your brothers so you're not alone like me, sad. Did you do something wrong for you to be locked up here instead of being with your brothers? Kyuubi, Gaki, aren't you afraid of me?" "Naruto, no Kyuubi-sama, if he had wanted to do something to me like the villagers he would have already done it." "Kyuubi, Kurama." "Naruto, excuse me, Kyuubi-sama, did you say something?" "Kyuubi, my name is Kurama and enough about Sama. It really seems strange to me that my container calls me that. But tell me, wouldn't you like to take revenge on those villagers?" "Naruto, well Kurama-san, although sometimes I hate how people treat me and look at me, I wouldn't like to hurt those villagers and also ninjas who treat me like garbage still." "Kurama, you know that right now you're in your mind and I'm sealed inside you. Do you hate me too?" "Naruto, although I admit to hating the villagers and ninjas of this village, people like Gigi have taught me to forgive, but I don't hate you. I see that you are good, and if you did something like destroying the village, you must have had your reasons for doing it and thought it was the right thing, right?" "Kurama, wow Gaki, for the first time I can say that a human impresses me, and I will tell you my reasons someday if you gain my complete trust, but now go out and I'll heal you, so go home." "Naruto, how do I do it, Kurama-san?" "Kurama, I already told you we are in your mind, so just close your eyes and think about getting out." "Naruto, see you later, Kurama." After that conversation a few months ago, we now return to the sad reality of a blonde boy suffering more and more from the abuse of ninjas and villagers when they were not seen by others. But the abuse worsened because now the children of civilians and ninjas also went in search of harassing and hitting the little boy who had done nothing to deserve such treatment. But like everyone else, no one bothered to ask among the younger minds what the boy had done for his parents to treat him like that, and since they only wanted possible rewards that his parents could give him, they just kept quiet about their questions and went day after day to hit and hurt the poor homeless orphan. They will wonder why homeless, right? Because even if they knew that Naruto had gotten a small apartment in the red light district of the village through the Sandame, he had lost it, or rather, he had been thrown out because his neighbors one day broke down his door and destroyed everything he had while stealing his food. They set fire to his bed and belongings such as his clothes, his few physical memories, his furniture, and in the process they let his pets do their business in all the rooms, leaving the place worse than a pigsty, and even more so when the neighbors, instead of throwing out their garbage, threw it all over the room where the blonde slept, turning his home into a dump in which it was impossible to sleep. Naruto then began his stage of laziness again, but not out of laziness. but rather he was a complete lazy bum who lived off whatever food he could find in the trash and only when he wasn't caught and kicked out of the place. He slept inside a cardboard box if he could find one, or he slept under one of the chairs in Konoha's park, or so it was until the night watchman ninjas of his own village saw him sleeping in the park and kicked him into the river where the boy almost drowned. Naruto lived a hell day by day, but he had no idea that what he was going to suffer today was a real hell where finally all the members of the Konoha village would show their true faces of bloodthirsty devils because the sun was barely setting and the demons would begin to come out of their shadows because today was October 10th, and the celebration of the 5-year anniversary of the defeat of the fox was going to be a special event, because of the surprise that the villagers had prepared. Together with the ninjas, it was already 6 in the afternoon, and the celebrations were beginning while the entire heart of Konoha lit up with lights and fireworks just like on New Year's. A little blonde boy was trying to hide from the atrocities that could happen to him today because he had sensed from the looks of the villagers that today they treated him, well. Just like all last week, he had a shiver run through his body when he looked at how they looked at him throughout the day with an anxious face with a certain degree of morbidity that even the fox inside gave him a terrible chill, which is why he advised its bearer to hide for today. But Naruto still couldn't stand to hide for much longer because although people hadn't been cruel to him this week, it didn't mean that they hadn't fed him, and now the little blonde boy with fox markings was dying of hunger while people walked happily down the street with huge amounts of food that the blonde, although invisible to others when in his hiding place. Seeing such quantities of varying food was torturing him as his stomach growled loudly, and he saw how others dropped parts of the delicious food they were eating, so he kicked the fallen remains so as not to dirty the avenues while the blonde only saw how beautiful food was wasted in front of him. It was already 8 o'clock at night, and Naruto couldn't stand it anymore because his poor brain saw how people walked happily with food while others felt full and wasted it totally while they smeared it on the ground so that no one else would eat it. Naruto's mouth was only watery while his stomach hurt from how spoiled it was while he tried not to bite his nails from the anxiety that the poor blonde was feeling while his eyes turned red, but he didn't cry because he knew that hearing his crying would give him away, but his body was so desperate to eat that when he saw that someone dropped a bowl of ramen on the ground because they were walking and tripped over a rock, he threw himself towards the ramen that was now dirty and muddy on the ground because the ramen soup loosened the soil, making it muddy and staining all the ramen. Even so, between tears and with his dignity lost, Naruto ate the ramen all in front of the public who saw him disgusted until they recognized him. So a ninja, taking advantage of the carelessness, kicked him by the chin while lifting him several meters in the air and stepping on the remains of the ramen. Then more ninjas and villagers were arriving due to the noises of the bustling people who approached out of curiosity, and once they managed to appreciate that it was the blonde fox crying while he was hurt, their faces changed drastically while smiles of pure evil appeared, and several began to kick him, while the little boy's body received all the physical blows until he unconsciousness. Little Naruto couldn't see anything, or so he thought, until he quickly felt a horrible and strong burning sensation in his stomach that was driving him crazy while he felt like his skin couldn't support him to open his eyes and now find himself in the middle of the forest, while he was tied hand and foot by several metal chains from several trees while he was held in the air about half a meter from the ground. Naruto watched in horror as the skin on his belly was being burned red hot, while a villager held a torch near his skin, causing him to scream in great pain while he cried in front of the entire public that surrounded him, happily enjoying his suffering. The thing didn't end there, because while the villager was doing that, he could now see how 4 canine-looking ninjas were approaching him with a face of superiority in their step. They were accompanied by their pets. 4 enormous dogs of very wild breeds, and that, by the way, seemed to be infected with the rabies disease that, if it weren't for their chains, would kill the blonde, but something like that was what was going to happen while the owners released the chains and saw how the possessed dogs went after their legs and feet to sink their enormous fangs with the intention of tearing the flesh and skin of the blonde, who only saw how the dogs were now in charge of torturing him, while the fire had stopped but most of the skin on his belly was seriously injured and red hot. He saw how pieces of it fell to the ground. Pero mientras que los perros rabiosos haitian su trabajo en las extremidades inferiores del rubio, su espalda descubierta fue empezada a usar por varios ninjas como para jugar a lanzar canais como si fuesen dardos inofensivos. Pero lo que más dolía es que dicas canais entonces estaban sujetos por cables de nylon por lo cual mientras los ninjas jalaban los cables para que los canais que habían perforado la piel del rubio regresaran hasta sus manos. Estos se movían mucho causando mucho más daño a la parte interior de la espalda del rubio que estaba desangrándose mientras una lluvia de sangre caía al suelo directo de esa parte trasera del rubio. Por delante en cambio los perros ya habían detenido su trabajo y si no fuera por Kurama que estaba haciendo lo que fuera para que Naruto que ya consideraba así como a un zorro menor de su manada sobreviviera. Ya estavis muerto pues los perros habían desgarrados los músculos del muchacho y arrancado también carne de las partes inferiores de las piernas al igual que de los pies. Pero los aldeanos ahora agarraban sus rastrillos para rasguñar con ellos el débil y blando estómago quemado del rubio que con sus últimas fuerzas de voluntad gritaba adoloridamente como sentía como pedazos de piel se terminaban por soltar de su zona abdominal para caer al suelo mientras de todas partes debajo del cuerpo del rubio un enorme charco de sangre se formaba y las fuerzas de Naruto lo dejaban pero la diversión de los demás no terminaba allí aunque la mayoría estaba contenta pues. Habían varios ninjas y aldeanos de mayor edad que querían seguir disfrutando de su dulce venganza por lo cual al nuevamente desmayado Naruto lo soltaban de las cadenas de sus muñecas para dejarlo acostado en su propio charco de sangre y lo despertaron nuevamente con fuego alrededor de la piel de sus brazos mientras que otro ninja usó un jutsu Raiten que utilizó la sangre como superconductor para despertar de manera definitiva al rubio que ya no tenía fuerza en su garganta para seguir gritando. De lo ronco que ya estaba pero sus lágrimas no paraban para la diversión de los demás. Now a tall and strong ninja stepped hard on Naruto's chest so that he would not try to get up while two other ninjas took out their affiliated kunais and buried each one. A kunai in the entire palm of each hand of the now 5-year-old boy until they completely pierced it, and the tip of said kunais was buried in the ground. The remaining ninjas, who were nothing more than a group of 5, decided to repeatedly kick the poor blonde's body strongly while his ribs broke and he began to vomit blood without rest. But when it seemed that he would drown in his own blood, one grabbed him by the head and lifted him up while the 2 kunais in his hands came out, tearing the palms of his hands further of that soft tissue so that then he vomited all the blood and did not drown. The ninja decided to finish while with his kunai he pierced his entire back and wrote, "Monster," all over his back while laughing like crazy. The ninjas then moved aside to watch the next villagers enjoy hurting the blonde, so they stayed while more people wanted their turn. People who hadn't heard before were now coming to get their turn as well. But seeing the boy's almost lifeless body made them want to have a piece of him even more and shouted eagerly for everyone to hurry up so they could have a piece too. The following villagers then with a broken bottle followed the steps of the ninja before him while with the pieces of glass they injured the entire body while an old man took another part of the back as a canvas for the word, demon. And with that Naruto fainted so that later a sickly older man grabbed one of the kunais from the ground and ripped off the little one's underwear, and then entered the sharp kunai into the blonde's anus who began to be injured with deep cuts while the others saw it and cheered him on. Meanwhile inside the blonde, specifically inside his mind, a blonde already looked at his fox companion with a cold lifeless gaze, and for the first time inside the cage the great fox was impressed by the thirst for blood that such a small young human had, but above all seeing his eyes only great hatred could be seen, but if you looked deeper into his eyes they had a black nucleus with red flashes. The blacker the color of the eye became, a powerful, evil aura began to cover and protect the blonde, who seemed to begin to be covered by a black mist corrupting the mind and mental space where they were of the blonde. But everything then disappeared and Naruto only preferred to talk something with his pack leader. "Naruto, Kurama, I'll give you my body so you can kill them all. But let me see how you do it. Let me see how they agonize, and before Hiruzen comes, escape with my body. We must flee once all these bastards are dead." "Kurama, understood Gaki, but then we must have a conversation." Now outside we return to see how some disgusting pedophiles tried to continue raping the unconscious little boy, but no longer with sticks, kunais, branches or whatever, but they would do it with their own disgusting senile old man's cocks, but they would not do it because an extremely powerful murderous instinct awakened from the blonde while he was covered by a bubbling blanket of reddish chakra, and two tails came out of Naruto's back, who was waking up while his nails lengthened, transforming into long claws. His whiskers lengthened and deepened, giving him a wilder touch, and now there would be the eyes to scare everyone else were not their typical sky blue but a great red color with the center torn like an animal, but above all no one could move from their places before that dark and sinister presence. Kurama, they will pay for everything they did to my Gaki, and they will all die. Senpu, Kami no Hai no Kabe, wise art, divine wall of fire. Now the enormous fox that controlled the little blonde's body had healed all the less serious wounds, and while his muscles were rebuilt, he wasted no time and enclosed everyone in a wall of fire that would not go out for a few hours due to the use of the fox's natural chakra to improve the Katon Jutsu and make the flames last longer. The ninjas no longer had an escape route, and although some tried to flee above or below the wall with their skills or ninjutsus, they ended up being burned alive to death, screaming for the pain to stop. But if it hadn't been for the mercy of the other ninjas, Kurama would have continued to torture them. Then using his two tails he caught two ninjas by their necks while they felt how that reddish chakra melted their skin and turned it red hot while they screamed for mercy, which only angered the orange fox even more. He was able to take out his third tail and tear off a limb from one of them while using the reddish chakra he cauterized the poor ninja's skin with high temperatures so that he would not bleed to death, but his skin still fell to pieces. The remaining ninjas tried to attack together to try to kill the boy that they had previously tortured, but now it was their turn for karma to return to them completely. Trying to get closer with their kunais to attack the now three ninjas who were being burned by the tails were the ones who received all the kunais and shuriken, while some suffered more than others. This was not over. The three were used as dead weight by the tails to whip the other ninjas while they themselves broke their bones when being used as dead meat to attack the others. Being more injured and with broken bones, unable to walk, while others with some missing limbs and a lot of blood everywhere, Kurama used his sharp nails like scalpels that pierced the skin of each ninja one by one while serious wounds and red chakra burned their insides in a horrible and agonizing slow death while they did not know how they died, if bleeding, drowned in their blood, or from the burns that were slowly consuming them from within. Now that the ninjas were only waiting for their encounter with the Shinigami, the villagers were really shitting their pants, and more so the senile old men who walked around with their pants down, who were the first to be attacked while their limbs were torn off by Kurama's tails and left without his tool, transforming them into hermaphrodites in the most painful way possible. But it did not end there, because they received their supreme sadomasochism session as they felt Kurama's claws slowly pierce their skin until reaching muscles and ligaments, tearing them completely while their screams and pleas demanded mercy. The fox had no mercy on the rest of the villagers or women, although he had the doubt inside. Naruto claimed the blood of all those women, but not before being graped by the chakra tails that burned everything from the entrance of their vaginas to inside their burned uterus, while their breasts and nipples were cut with long claws while they were left there to see if they survived to live the rest of their horrible lives with regret. But Kurama already knew it was time to leave, because he felt the Sandaime and an Anbu group coming in his direction due to all the curiosity that there must have been in Konoha. So the fox in possession of Naruto's body jumped into a tree and escaped from the outskirts of the village, while the body of the blonde fox was already fully recovered but naked and partially graped. Despite the healed wounds, there would be many scars that should be healed in a better way. Returning with the group from Konoha who came to see the burned area, he was able to avoid the wall thanks to his superior skills and multiple Suiton ninjutsu among the 10 of the 15 ninja present, plus the Sandaime, who managed to form a hole in the wall only to vomit at the sight of the swamp of blood and ashes. Hiruzen approached step by step while his white kage robes were stained with blood, and he regretfully covered his mouth until he saw several women seriously but still breathing, and he quickly went to their aid, while the last one, before losing consciousness, saw the Sandaime and managed to pronounce. Villager, Semo. Hiruzen demo? Anbu, Sandaime-sama. We found rags of clothing belonging to what we believe to be the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Hiruzen, not Naruto. Meanwhile, Kurama was already far from the village, but stopped dead in his tracks because Naruto was very weak and had been feeling for a while that someone was chasing him, so he stopped. Naruto, Kurama, what do you want, and why have you been following me? Kuku, don't worry Kyubi-kun, I will heal you, but come with me and you can take revenge on the village. You don't want that, right? After all, I saw what you did to the others and I loved seeing such an act of atrocities without compassion. I will even teach you to control the beast inside you. Kurama wanted to say no, but he couldn't hold back when he saw his chakra stop leaking, and then he saw two snakes biting Naruto's body. Kurama couldn't take it anymore and went back inside while Naruto's body was kidnapped by the mysterious man. Desoil a normal, unknown location. In a dark and gloomy place, our blonde-haired boy, still wounded, full of scars barely healed by a mysterious man, begins to wake up from his long sleep. The blonde slowly opened his eyelids, showing his blue eyes as icy as ice and pupils as black as night, only to realize that he could not move his arms and feet. Still unable to realize what was happening around him, the blonde closed his eyes again while trying to guess what was happening. He began to shake his arms and legs while he felt that something was limiting and holding him, but he also heard a metallic sound every time he moved, just like metal chains that restricted him. So Naruto realized that he was imprisoned and trapped by someone in a dark place without even a small portion of light wherever he was. Although everyone would think that the blonde would give up, instead he just closed his eyes again to reach his subconscious and meet a huge fox. Naruto, Kurama, can you feel something or someone? I have this strange feeling that someone is looking at me with ill will, but worse than those of the cursed villagers of that horrible village that we will destroy later. Kurama, Gaki, I feel a very dark chakra presence watching you right now inside the room. Naruto, Cold, I know you're there, so come out of your hiding place, or when I'm free I'm going to kill you slowly so you'll wish you had never crossed my path. Kyubi-kun, don't get angry if I rather made and healed your serious wounds, although you will heal quickly. By the way, I want to train you to become a monster and destroy Konoha together, among other things. Naruto, well, first of all, the name is said, not the intentions. Besides, you have a weird pedophile laugh, so get away from me and turn on the light. Otherwise, call me Kyubi-kun again, and when I can, I'm going to kill you slowly while I hear your screams comforting me. My name is Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, and I was also a student of the Sandaime Hokage, although today I am a traitor to the village and one of the most dangerous ninjas in the world. Naruto, what do you think? Kurama, Gaki, you should accept. You could learn a lot from this man who hides many secrets, and when he is no longer useful to us, kill him. Sadistic. Naruto, I accept. So after that bizarre and short talk, a stage of personal and interpersonal growth could begin. Quite abnormal. And although it was hell for the other ninjas, for Naruto this was nothing compared to what had happened in his home village of Konoha for so many months in recent years. Orochimaru was truly such an abnormal and strange person at the same time, and that could be reflected in the way he trained Naruto. Although Naruto was the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki in the eyes of the Sannin, that did not make him immune to everything, so if Orochimaru wanted to make Naruto his next container, he would first have to adapt it to whatever it was. But what the pedophile snake did not know and would never know is that he could never take possession of Naruto's body, because in any case the bijou inside him would kill him if he decided to try to host his blackish and serpentine soul in his cub. To first adapt the young man, the snake Sannin then tied his new pupil for the first 6 months of training every morning, and then injected powerful poisons into his system. As a result, the first 3 months were a feeling and sensation of horror unlike any other torture the blonde had previously suffered in Konoha because of the poisons administered to the body of the little 5-year-old boy. Naruto then suffered daily from horrible fevers at extremely high temperatures, the sensation of his epidermis burning and scorching horribly while his blood coagulated, causing him to suffer from severe attacks and severe respiratory problems. If it weren't for Kurama, Naruto would surely have died of cardiac or respiratory arrest, but it wasn't only because of the poison in the boy's bodily systems, but because he was also forced to undergo strict physical training while the poisons disappeared from his body. The normal thing in those days was to see the little blonde boy vomit blood, and sometimes it even seemed like he was suffering from foam attacks, as if he was suffering from animal rabies. Those first 3 months were real torture, harder than Naruto could have believed it would be, and he still had another 3 months of poisons to go before his body became the perfect anti-venom container for everyone. Kurama, in aid of his Jinchuriki, accelerated Naruto's antibody process so that every hour of every day, His immune system strengthened 2 to 3 times faster than a normal person, so his physical strength and willpower increased daily. For the remainder of his first year, not only had Naruto become immune, but he had also begun to gain physical strength while his resistance became stronger, as well as his reflexes with agile movements and great flexibility. While Orochimaru thought Naruto was resting every afternoon after about 15 hours of merciless daily training, the blonde, instead of resting, went into the interior of his mind where he learned from the enormous nine-tailed fox. Kurama psychologically tortured what Orochimaru did physically to the blonde with these cruel and terrifying trainings. The fox knew that the only way Naruto would become a powerful monster capable of committing his revenge and being the one who could change the ninja world. Naruto then mentally learned to be a cunning fox like his bijou, from diversion tactics to stealth and strategy, but also a lot of knowledge about the ninja world and scientific evolution. But the beginning of the second year for Naruto was a real headache, because although he already knew that Orochimaru was crazy, he did not believe that something so bad would happen to him. One day during dinner in one of the headquarters of the underground laboratories of the Snake Sannin, after having dined peacefully, the blonde had not been able to know the bad intentions that the black-haired man had towards him when the food was altered so that the blonde fell into a deep sleep. Then Orochimaru kicked the blonde's body as if it were nothing, to prove that the blonde was really caught in the trap he had planned, and now it was the real time of fun. With the help of his faithful right hand Kabuto Yakushi, they moved the blonde's body to an operating room where they tied the blonde to the bed and sealed his chakra with seals, and to sedate him in a more painful way for the operation, and that the body was in conditions to be altered, Orochimaru combined the most powerful poison he had, which was from his sword, the Kusanagi, with Manda's poison, which he obtained after making sacrifices to him. The time of the operation had begun, and Naruto did not know what was happening because his mind was in a kind of trance that did not allow him to access the space he shared with Kurama. Although the great fox was aware of what was happening outside of Naruto's body, and could only growl quite angrily thinking about what the snake was planning with his cub. Orochimaru was then ready for the operation, and since the poison was administered to Naruto's body and he was in a combined state between shock and coma, the ropes that restricted Naruto's body movement were no longer necessary. Now he tore all the clothes the blonde was wearing and only left him in boxers, while Kabuto just analytically watched what his master did with the blonde, who was also interested but in a different way than the snake. Orochimaru then asked his assistant to take the samples that were stored in the refrigerator that contained the different DNA fragments that the Sannin had collected over time. Kurama already suspected what Orochimaru would do, and he was truly burning with anger because doing a transfusion and altering the blonde's DNA genomes was very dangerous with a high fatality rate, but on the other hand it could also awaken Naruto's Uzumaki genes that were somehow sealed on the day of his birth. The Sannin of the snakes then proceeded to place 2 intravenous lines, one for each arm of the blonde, while tying his legs with constrictor snakes, because what would happen next not even the Sannin himself knew, and that instilled some fear in him, but the scientific curiosity was much stronger in him, which is why each line was then being supplied with a special serum combined with the toxin created with the genomes of the previously collected samples. The toxins now combined with Orochimaru's special serum each changed color respectively, while one was red the other was brown, and both slowly entered the body of the now 6-year-old boy. The veins in the young boy's arms became tense and were as if swollen, while all the veins began to sprout throughout the body of the unconscious blonde, who began to suffer from adverse reactions because his immune and genetic system was being altered second by second, which is why the blonde's entire organism began to mutate, causing his body to move erratically without control. Naruto's body then entered a state of anaphylactic shock due to the allergic reactions that the blonde's body took while drool came out of Naruto's mouth like rage. His body began to tremble, while an extreme oozing wet the entire stretcher and a high fever now hit the blonde's body. Orochimaru coldly saw what was happening to his student's body. Instead, Kabuto was somewhat altered by the blonde because his body was rejecting the serum and was now on the verge of death, while now he heard whistling from Naruto's chest, who also entered a state where he could not breathe comfortably, while the machines that monitored the blonde indicated that his heart rate entered a high tachycardia, which could result in Naruto's heart exploding. Kurama from inside Naruto tried to calm the symptoms of the adverse reactions of the serum by restructuring the genetics of his cub, but with the chakra blocking seals and with everything that was happening to the blonde's body, the chakra that was released was not enough to calm the reactions because it was consumed in repairing the internal damage to the body. Kabuto instead did the most sensible thing and put Naruto's body in an upright position, while he put him on his side so Naruto could breathe better and administered medicine combined with his chakra to help the blonde heal. 6 hours had passed and Naruto's body was already more relaxed, while now Orochimaru was going to finish the process of all this while he approached the blonde again. He approached his neck and then bit Naruto, administering his chakra, causing some black marks to begin to come out of the bite area, but the curse seal Orochimaru had just placed on Naruto was not the same as the one Orochimaru believed Naruto would have. The 3 tomos of the curse seal, instead of being totally black as they always were, had a different design than the original, while although it was black it had red and orange details that made it totally different from everything else. For the next 3 months after the operation, Naruto was in a coma, but he was truly awake in his subconscious that he spent time talking to Kurama, but this fox would never treat Naruto the same again, so he decided to tell him his true origins. He told him about his mother Kushina Uzumaki and also spoke with hatred of Minato Namikaze, his father, who turned out to be also the Yondaime Hokage, which resulted in Naruto deeply hating his father but became interested in his jutsus that he would acquire later. However, all Naruto's curiosity was focused on knowing about the Uzumaki clan, so he asked Kurama to tell him everything he knew about his clan because he was interested in everything he could get from his clan and become much more powerful. After learning everything, he admired and respected his mother's clan, and knowing that he was the heir of that clan gave him an evil smile. But above all, he would find out everything about the Uzumaki and Fuinjutsu Jutsu in the months following his awakening. So that happened 3 months later. Naruto woke up, but he had a blindfold on his eyes that he couldn't take off, but he still didn't know the reason why it had been imposed on him. Kabuto, who was there for life reasons, or rather because Orochimaru left him in charge of his recovery, entered the room and explained what had happened. His DNA had been affected, and because of that his body had suffered a tremendous change, and that included his eyes that had some change, and he had to wait 9 months to then uncover his eyes. Among the changes that Kabuto had told Naruto is that his muscles by themselves had increased, and now his hair also remained blonde but now with some strong strands of dark black. The silver-haired man with glasses then also told him that Orochimaru should return tomorrow to impose his new training. Naruto now entered his mental space again to see what changes Kurama could feel in his body. But such was the surprise to know that Kurama told him that although they had not yet begun his elemental training, from that extreme operation to which he was subjected he obtained another nature of chakra that he did not have, which was the Doton. Although his affinity to other elements increased, such as the Suiton and Riton, but what surprised him most is that apparently the serums introduced into him, Kurama recognized them as the Senju and Uchiha genome. With all that said, Naruto was really surprised more when Kurama now suspected that he could not see because his body may be readjusting so that it could awaken the Sharingan in addition to being able to obtain the Mokuton and the Rinnegan due to the chakra of Ashura and Indra, a story that Kurama had recently told Naruto because of the suspicions he had. But the Great Fox also admitted just now that once he had fallen into a coma due to the surprise operation, he felt like 2 chakras were resonating in his body, but above all one that already lived inside him. But with all the hatred that Naruto felt, the other chakra also resonated strongly, and there were clearly the chakras of Indra and Ashura. Kurama then proceeded to destroy both of them so that their souls would be freed, destroying the perpetual cycle of reincarnations, but kept the chakra so that it would fuse with Naruto's, which increased the level of acceleration of the blonde's change. Naruto then smiled vilely, knowing that his body would be capable of awakening from the Sharingan and Rinnegan to awakening the legendary Mokuton, as well as having the 5 chakra natures. The next day Naruto just woke up, and although he couldn't see if he had begun to awaken his sensor gene just like a good Uzumaki, so he already recognized the dark energy of Orochimaru's chakra. The blonde with black hair highlights just stood up before his teacher, and although he was blind, he formally greeted him with respect and asked him about his training, which the black-haired man only said training of the senses and sensory ability. Since Naruto could not always depend on his sight, This training is now for Naruto to fine-tune his senses such as smell, hearing, touch, and the sensory ability of the Uzumaki that Naruto always had active but never realized, while Orochimaru already recognized his ability from the first day where his dark confinement. So for the next 9 months, Naruto was attacked by ninjas and snakes summoned every day for hours and in moments of surprise by Orochimaru and his men, so that he was always alert. Now 9 months later, Naruto was a monster who could track and sense chakra at great distances, while also his defense increased insanely, dodging blows from medium Chunin speeds to low Jonin, and in passing using the first phase of the curse seal to further sharpen his senses and be a physical combat monster without having to depend on sight. Now it was time for the bandages to be removed, and when he opened his eyes, the blonde now had red irises with black pupils, but it was not the base Sharingan. But he awakened the Mangekyo at once, leaving Kabuto frightened and a Sannin smiling, knowing that his future container would be so strong. After that, Naruto was already 8 years old, and Orochimaru decided it was time to train him in both ninjutsu and give him a base in Fuinjutsu, because he always asked him about the Uzumaki and decided to rekindle Naruto's flame and then steal all the Uzumaki techniques they had. Naruto also met this year the other boys that Orochimaru had captive and was with them interacting while also training himself and the others in an attempt to get Naruto to interact, but he was especially interested in 2 redheads because maybe they would be Uzumakis. Then at 9 years old, Naruto was still training while he became colder and more sadistic, and already had traits of being a type of sociopath who controlled people to do what he wanted and then coldly killed them. Orochimaru, although he didn't know that Taiya was Uzumaki, knew that the best thing he could do for his village Odogekure to become stronger in his dream of destroying Konoha and being able to control the other villages. He needed strong soldiers, and the best would be Uzumaki, so he introduced Naruto to the world of Hex, and with only 9.5, Naruto had his first time with several useless women at the same time who were nothing more than bitches, but still the Sannin only wanted samples of the blonde sperm, which he couldn't do. Naruto was already approaching 10 years old, and knew that he had to start acting and free Kurama from his seals so that he could learn to use his power as a bijou. So he began to investigate, study and practice Uzumaki Fuinjutsu until he finally obtained it with much research and his clones traveling the world to the temple on the outskirts of Konoha. There he discovered one of the most dangerous seals of all the Uzumaki seals, the Kinjutsu of the Shiki Fujin. A technique capable of summoning the Shinigami, and in exchange for the user's life, the power was obtained for the Shinigami to do something for you, such as reversing the seal that Naruto kept on his stomach, or consuming someone's soul. Over the following months he learned to make the seal, so he decided to do it tonight. Following the steps of the scroll and making hand seals, Naruto did everything he had to do, and now he only had to do the summoning. Naruto, Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Shiki Fujin. Then everything turned dark around Naruto now, while a white-haired monster with a purple Oni mask appeared in front of him, and smiled vilely in front of the boy who summoned him because he recognized him, or rather he always saw what would become of the boy, and now he knew that it was time to reveal some things. Shinigami. Oh Naruto Uzumaki, it's been many years since your father summoned me so that the QB better known as Kurama would be sealed inside you. But in doing so, I also blocked your Uzumaki genome, and made a seal to unlock your birth ability, which I see has strengthened over the years. Naruto, birth ability? Shinigami. That's right, Uzumaki Naruto, you are the only one who has awakened the Meitun element for more than 1,000 years, since the time of the Rakudo Sannin, who had and kept secret the Kurutan, also known as the light element, which is the elemental counterpart of your Meitun. Now that you know, I will train you to use it, in addition to making you my summoner and releasing the seal on your bijou so you can use its chakra. Naruto. Thank you very much, Shinigami-sama, but I still don't understand why you would give me your contract and train me at Meitun. Kurama, even I have that doubt, and you will also release the boy's Uzumaki genome, right? Shinigami. That's right, Kurama, and I know your suspicions about his hatred of the Uchiha, but Naruto's black hair isn't because of Madara's DNA, but because it's the Meitun that's fusing more with Naruto, making his dark power stronger as long as it's fueled by Naruto's evil desires, as well as hatred, anger, and lust. Naruto. So everything I've been through has helped me become stronger without me knowing it. Shinigami. Yes and no at the same time. while you become stronger with your training with Kurama and that creeping snake that wants you to be its new body later, the power of your Meitan is also increasing, but because of that darkness in your heart and mind without depending on physical training. Your Meitan is sealed, and only in moments of great negative emotions like when the villagers almost killed you that you switched with Kurama. Your body unconsciously released the Meitan, but you still have no ability with this unique element. Naruto, abilities? What abilities does this element have that make it so unique? Shinigami. Where there is light there is always darkness, never forget that. Every being, both good and evil, has light and darkness. No matter how good a person is, they will always have a negative desire or feeling for which they will always have a particle of darkness in their being, while it is the same with an opposite case of being dark with some light inside. With the abilities of the Meitan, you can do everything from covering your surroundings in darkness, merging it and making your other elements more powerful to, if you use it well, manipulate, and even grow the darkness of other people so that they become your servants and never betray you. However, the best ability of all, one that could be considered kinjutsu as humans say, is that you can tear the darkness from someone's heart, leading them to their immediate death. Naruto. I like that, and how do I know how much darkness a person has? Shinigami. Once you learn to control the darkness as if it were chakra, you will be able to feel it as a kind of sensor without any problem. Then let's close this deal, Uzumaki Naruto. A part of me will stay inside you to train you mentally. Now I will release the seals, so don't worry, Kurama will stay inside you. Also, your Uzumaki powers will unlock little by little, so your mother's chakra inside you will also do it, so that you unlock her abilities as well as your father's chakra, but I will subdue his power so that you can do with it whatever you want. Psychotic laughter. Naruto. Okay. So Naruto was freed from the seal that his very bastard father, or blonde degenerate as Kurama, and several of those nicknames had given him, to then see how the blonde's hair also changed from blonde to reddish little by little for the following months. Naruto then for a year and a half more continued to develop under the bizarre training of Orochimaru that had become more violent, while the behavior of his pupil became more aggressive, and not only that but also his lustful way of being in front of girls also grew, although he had no problems raping them if they did not agree to the blonde's wishes. Naruto's training with Kurama and Shinigami also became stronger, with Naruto now able to perfectly control the three tails without any problem, while his control in the Meitan grew to crazy levels, while his hair finished turning entirely red with sporadic black streaks everywhere. Finally, when Minato and Kushina's chakra was released from Naruto's seal, given the nature of the changing hair, this had a strange moment of mother-son love, but his father was punished while Kurama tortured him. In the end, Kushina trained Naruto for 3 months until her chakra ran out, while in Minato's case, he was only tortured by the Jinchuriki and his bijou until he gave up and decided to pass on his knowledge. Just like Kushina, now 12 years old, it was time for Naruto to begin his master plan, which began over a year ago, and today all that was left was his last victim, who had already fallen into his trap. However, the only missing piece in his plan didn't know that he would only become the puppet that would lead a certain creeping snake to its death. With his skillful control of the Meitan, Naruto was now controlling the heart and desires of a silver-haired man with glasses so that everything would go smoothly. Naruto, maniac, well Kabuto, it's time for you to show your loyalty. Bring Orochimaru before me. Kabuto, hi Naruto-sama no lo falar. Naruto, enjoy your last minutes. Orochimaru-sensei, your time has come. Snake Hunter, Odogekure. We are among what is said to be the cruelest ninja village of all the small villages. But today we are not here for those reasons, but in fact we are about to see the day in which the founding ninja of said village, Orochimaru, was going to be killed after a trap that was planned in advance a long, long time ago. Now we go to the Sannin of the Snakes, who in his last hours alive has tried to find a cure for one of his projects, which was the last known Kaguya of all time, that is, the film and only Kimi no Kagura, which would be the new container of the Sannin's body if not for a strange disease in which Kimi cannot produce enough calcium in his bones due to his Kekkai Genkai, and as a consequence an adverse reaction to Kaguya's body. Without diverting his attentive gaze from Kaguya, he listens as the door opens and feels the chakra and the smell of the new guest in the room, like that of his trusted subordinate, the well-known Kabuto Yakushi. Orochimaru, what are you doing here, Kabuto? Shouldn't you be watching the other experiments to see how they're going? Kabuto, Excuse me, Orochimaru-sama, but Naruto-sama has requested you in his private training room, saying that he wanted to see you urgently. About something about a Kekii Genkai that he awakened. Orochimaru, Kakuku, so with a new Kekii Genkai, it seems to be my lucky day. Kabuto, check Kimono's blood tests and later give them to me so we can see what we can do to make her my next container. Kabuto, hi Orochimaru-sama, he already fell into Naruto-sama's trap. I hope he suffers a lot. Naruto training room. As Orochimaru headed to the room in which the Uzumaki trained, the latter was finishing with blood-colored ink the last few seals so that this trap would be deadly perfect. Naruto then smiled widely when he felt the dark and morbid evil chakra of Orochimaru towards his position, and for his trap to be perfect he just threw himself to the ground in the lotus position and closed his eyes as if he was meditating on some training. A few minutes later, Orochimaru opened the door without knocking, and once he closed it, he activated the first bolt of the deadly trap in which the room was hermetically sealed, making it impossible to escape even if space-time jutsu or another kind of jutsu were used, such as disappearing underground. The snake Sannin felt a bad chill run through his body, but he didn't really care because his self-confidence plus a rather inflated ego didn't help him prevent what was coming. Orochimaru, very well Naruto-kun, what is that supposed Kekii Genkai that you should show me perhaps to train you now? Naruto, Orochimaru, did you just make me come here to waste my valuable time, Naruto-kun? Naruto, no. Orochimaru, no what? Naruto, I only had you come here to give you one last gift before you leave. Orochimaru, my departure? What are you talking about, and what does that have to do with a gift? Is that gift the supposed Kekii Genkai Kabuto mentioned? Naruto, no. I just wanted you to see the monster you created devour everyone in its darkness. Evil smile. Akuma no Fujin Uzumaki, Hinata, demonic Fuinjutsu Uzumaki, snake hunter. Now by simply activating the seals remotely with his chakra plus that of his bijou inside, the Uzumaki was able to make the blood seals begin to shine, alerting that something was happening to Orochimaru, but he could not do anything. When the Sannin of the snakes tried to do something, he was immobilized by strange black chains that came out of the Uzumaki's back, leaving the black-haired Sannin speechless to know that his now traitorous student had the chains that had the power to seal a bijou. Now the blood seals in the room became what they were, plain and simple. In blood that began to travel to Orochimaru's body and coiled around his skin like the tentacles of a squid-like creature, and the seals returned in the form of tattoos that burned the pale Sannin's skin red-hot, while his entire chakra was blocked, leaving him as defenseless as a mere civilian. Naruto, now let me explain. The Kyuubi told me about my heritage. With the time and freedom you gave me, I was able to find and learn the techniques of my clan that you deprived me of for all these years, and now all your chakra is sealed and is slowly destroyed until you become a being without chakra, which is why it is most likely that within a few hours you will die, but it would be very boring for it to happen like that. Which is why everything you have done to me during these years now you will pay me in these hours of games between sensei and student. Do not worry about asking for help. Once you entered, the room was completely sealed with a barrier that prevents space-time jutsu and your other possible means of escape even if you had chakra. In addition, the doors are closed and cannot be opened from the inside, but thanks to my faithful servant Kabuto, we can now have fun without interruptions because your last loyal ninjas must be dying at this moment, while we speak with poison overdoses, ha 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 ha. Now let's start with our fun. Warning, the content shown below presents torture and strong scenes, so it is recommended to skip it if you are sensitive. If I post this, which I never do, just think what will happen so I can warn you. Naruto then the first thing he did was snap his fingers as new seals but made of ink appeared from the ground while new chains appeared from the ground while they held the limbs of Orochimaru's arms and legs and slammed him against the ground while a slight gesture of pain came out of Orochimaru's mouth. Naruto just smiled because the first thing he was going to do was one of the things he had wanted so much since Orochimaru performed such a horrible operation in which he genetically modified his body. Without tact or anything, the blonde decided to start nailing or rather stabbing Orochimaru's body with hundreds of those needles used for acupuncture to stick them in each of the 365 acupuncture points on the body. But to make this operation more fun, he stuck the needles right into the snake Sannin's bloodstream, breaking several veins and arteries in the process, while Orochimaru felt a pain he had never known, and it was only the beginning. As needle by needle was slowly stuck in, small traces of blood began to come out through the microscopic gaps between the surface of the needles and Orochimaru's skin, staining the black-haired man's clothes. Still unhappy with the outcome of the insertion in the first stage of Orochimaru's operation, he decided to move on to the second part, where he began to generate lightning chakra between his fingers to generate static energy and small flashes of light that would serve an electrifying purpose. Naruto, you know Hibi-sensei. As a ninja you should know that the Suiton, also known as the water element, is weak against Raiton because water is a super electrical conductor, but as a doctor you should also know that the entire human body is made up of water, and this can be seen quite well in that if you take a blood sample, 70% of this sample will be water while the rest is plasma, among other things. Therefore, as your student, I want to show you the advantages that Raiton has in its purest form with blood as a means of conductivity for torture in living beings. You should already know that these needles go directly into your bloodstream, so the electricity should flow directly to your entire body, and perhaps as consequences could arise intense pain, lack of sensitivity in parts of your body, total failure of the brain or other organs, or damage to the programmed functions in the human body. But since none of this has been tested on humans, today you will have the honor of being the first to serve as a subject for my research. Orochimaru, damned you! Once I free myself I will torture you, and you will be my experiment in all my research until I kill you. Cursed spawn of Namikaze. Naruto, sensei, I really wanted to have fun just with you, but now I'll give you what you deserve for comparing me or associating me with that unhappy bastard. Raiton, Ryu, lightning release, lightning shower. A ball then blue in color of pure electricity was then formed in each hand of the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki as he joined them in a single attack that levitated above Orochimaru's body and little by little began to break up into small electric drops that seemed to simulate the fall of rain until it entered through the needles and gave hundreds of electric shocks to Orochimaru's body. The Sannin tied to the ground now only screamed desperately in pain while he writhed and spat saliva between hundreds of loud screams that only by moving so erratically accelerated the output of blood in his system, thus increasing the places where the blood met with the electric drops that worsened the process of the pale and now so fragile snake man. After the sphere was consumed by the chakra exhaustion of the technique, a dying Orochimaru could be seen with tears in his eyes because his body could not bear the pain he had gone through, and now the black-haired man with scarlet highlights very slowly removed the needles while the bloodbath increased, and the chances of the Sannin fainting also seemed to arrive soon. But Naruto would not let the poor snake fall asleep so quickly, so with an injection of adrenaline directly to the heart area, he reactivated Orochimaru's entire body, who could only stare as his former student would now continue playing with him. Naruto, don't cry anymore, sensei. Seeing you like this breaks my heart, mockingly. Now let's play a quick game. Do you know the finger game? Orochimaru, Naruto, you don't know, sensei? Well, let me show you exactly how to play. Naruto then turned around and, among a couple of tools on a table, grabbed a specialized construction hammer and some other tools. Placing the hammer on Orochimaru's first finger, or rather, his right thumb, he decided to start his game. Naruto, this little finger got run over. I smashed the finger with the hammer. Orochimaru, hhhhhhhhh. Naruto, this little finger was severed. With a wooden saw I cut the second finger very slowly. Orochimaru, hhhhhhhh. Naruto, this one was stabbed. He stabbed a knife hard and moved it in a circular motion until it separated from his hand. Orochimaru, hhhhhhhhh. Naruto, this one was set on fire. With a liquid accelerant and a lighter it was burned red hot until all the skin on the finger was burned and torn off. Orochimaru, prrrrhhhhh. Naruto, a tourniquet was placed on this one so that he wouldn't bleed out. With pliers he grabbed the little finger and moved it in circles until the bone and muscle gave way very slowly while the skin was twisted until it gave way and came off. Orochimaru, hhhhhhhhh. This continued until the fingers on the other hand ran out, and Orochimaru was left without any fingers to be able to do his precious thousands of jutsus that he has collected. Naruto, That's your first lesson. Don't take away from others their precious things such as their clan heritage, or they will take away what you value such as your chakra, your pride, or your ability to do jutsus. Now sensei, let's go to game number 3, you will definitely love it. Orochimaru. Naruto, if you really have any mercy left in you, please just finish this. Naruto. Life, and you have taught me that mercy truly does not exist and is only an illusion created by humans so that their suffering ends sooner. Now we have not even my other elements, but since blood can be like a collaboration between Suiton and Raiton, then let's continue with the Katon. You know, sensei, although you do not believe it as a Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, or rather Kurama, which is its real name, my affinity to fire was very high, but when I inserted those Uchiha genes into me, it only shot up against the sky, being one of my strongest affinities and with the least chakra consumption. But you were never interested in my Katon training, so today I will show her my strong affinity. Normally you train by melting a metal bar by inserting Katon chakra into it when you train as a Jounin, but I have a better way to show it to you. The Uzumaki then proceeded to grab Orochimaru's fine, silky hair from its tips that reached his back area and quickly proceeded to generate Katon chakra in his palms that was infused into Orochimaru's hair that began to heat up from start to finish. Orochimaru began to feel second by second how his scalp was heating up and his skin began to burn hopelessly while smoke began to emerge from the parts where there was more hair until all the hair began to catch fire from one moment to the next, while Naruto only released the hairs that he had in his hands. The Sannin screamed like crazy while his head burned in fire and his skin melted into burns, while parts of what was left of his clothes began to burn as well to cause serious injuries in the areas where the skin was burned, until Naruto saw that Orochimaru would die if his brain melted, so he began to make a series of hands until he finished, while from the atmosphere water particles gathered, forming a sphere around Orochimaru, enclosing him in water while all the fire went out. Naruto, Suiton Surin no Jutsu, Water Prison. The white-haired man seems to have gone from a terrible hell under the flames of Naruto's fire to now what seemed like a sea grave, because with little strength and almost all his will decimated to nothing, the Sannin of the snakes now drowned while his weak lungs expelled the little air they had left to fill themselves with pure water, while his open wound stained the Uzumaki's jutsu in blood, dyeing part of the water red. Naruto's elemental torture was now at another level, while the muscles of the now bald and deformed Sannin gave up, and now he closed his eyes in his possible last breath. But Naruto would not be merciful and still had several things to prove, so he electrocuted his previous jutsu as it fell apart, and water came out of Orochimaru's mouth, but inside there was still water, so he made his own wind jutsu to make new air reach his lungs, but the jutsu also damaged some of the alveoli inside the lungs to obstruct the passage of air, and Orochimaru felt second by second how his lungs slowly locked up, until he could not breathe anymore, and as a bonus, he would no longer hear his pathetic screams, even if they were like a melody to the Uzumaki's ears. Naruto, okay sensei, we're almost done. You've already suffered the torture of the Raiton, Katon, Suiton and Futon, so all we have left is the Doton, which although it's not my strongest affinity, I've been able to learn some very good things from it. You know, despite being electrocuted and set on fire, your skin is still very soft in many parts and maintains its flexibility. I always believed it was by coincidences of life that your skin was so pale and all, but after investigating and seeing that a snake's skin is like that under its scales, well, I thought what would happen if its skin was affected. As you know, the property of the Doton is solidification, so let's see what happens when a skin like yours solidifies and then accidents happen. Orochimaru, Cough. COF. FF. Naruto, what? I don't understand anything. It must be the obstruction of your airways and the fact that you are drowning due to lack of air. But don't worry, it won't be long before it's all over. I won't miss you much, sensei, but at least all your resources will help me rebuild Yuzu and get my revenge not only against Konoha but also against Kiri, Iwa and Kumo, but in the process I will undoubtedly take Suna too and rule everything with an iron fist, killing whoever gets in my way and turning every woman I cross into an obedient faithful bitch. Now let's get this over with. Doton, his Junin no Kyukai, Earth release, crack of the decades. So with just a touch of Naruto's hand on Orochimaru's body, all of it began to turn a more yellowish-brown color, just like mustard sand, and with it, his skin dried out and cracked into pieces, just like the cracks that appear in stones over time. All of Orochimaru's skin, with or without wounds, without exception, solidified in a painful process that made the Sannin feel heavier, as if he were made of stone. But when Naruto only touched it, this process stopped. Although both of Orochimaru's legs and one of his arms had apparently solidified completely, and after a stumble by Naruto, he fell on one of the emaciated Orochimaru's legs as it broke and disappeared like dust, while the black-haired, scarlet-haired man, in order not to fall to the ground, supported himself on a knee that fell right on the Sannin's stone hand, breaking it completely, while Orochimaru still felt the pain, and although he couldn't scream, his reactions were undoubtedly leading him to drown in an easier way. Naruto, unfortunately it's getting late and I have to do other things, so our playtime is over, but first I want to introduce you to a person who wanted to meet you for a long time, and that same person taught me how to use the Kekkei Genkai with which I was born and only I possess. Kuchiyos no Jutsu, Shinigami. Shinigami. Oh Naruto-san, I see that you have achieved one of the objectives that I have set for you, and by the way I see that you had a lot of fun with it, but you are not finished with it yet, or not? Naruto. Of course not, Shin, but I want to show you the results of my training. Also, with all these games and the fear that has grown in my ex-sensei, all his darkness has become much stronger, and with that I will do it more. Cynical smile. Shin. That's right, Naruto, and I suppose that once you use your fabulous Meitan and tear out all the darkness from Orochimaru's heart, and your body devours it to make your powers stronger, I'll keep the soul of this outcast, right? Naruto. That's right, Shin, and before you think that you will survive Sensei, well, let me tell you something. No matter how many curse seals you have made and put in each one of them a little of your soul, because if your main piece of soul is torn out and consumed by the Shinigami, what remains is that all the other fragments will go with the original piece of your soul, and your way to return to the world of the living is zero. But do not worry, thanks to what I stole the scrolls of the curse seal and studied them. Although your soul was necessary for these to work, it is no longer necessary, because I will replace it with Kurama's chakra, and I will make those seals more powerful, and only those most faithful to me will have them. Even so, thank you for being my tool, Orochimaru, and now you only have to die. Meitan, Jinsei no Kurayami Kara no Chushitsu, darkness release, extraction of the darkness of life, end of torture. So then Orochimaru's body moved erratically as he felt something detach from his body, and his heart exploded into pieces as he looked in terror at Naruto in his last breath, to then see how from his now corpse a black energy came out that joined the blackish aura that came from the Uzumaki, while now it only grew, and Naruto Uzumaki's power mutated and grew. Now the Shinigami proceeded to then take Orochimaru's soul with him in a way that said so. When feeling the cold and chilling hands of the Shinigami, tried to flee in any way but could not, and with a pull from the god of death, all the fragments of the snake Sannin's soul came out of the bodies of all the holders of accursed seal, while an ugly scar now formed in the place of his mark. Shinigami left there happy, while Naruto just called Kabuto, and he transported him to the home of the snake clan, the Ryuchi cave. Snake Sage, what are you doing here, boy? Where's Orochimaru? Manda, how dare you come here without being called? You should be begging for your life, Gaki. Answered the wise man's question. Naruto, 1. You're not the one to command me, you damn worm. 2. Orochimaru is now dead thanks to me. And 3. I only came here to say goodbye to the new extinct summoning clan. Kurama, it's time. Understood, Naruto. Naruto/Kurama. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu no Satiro, Hanta no Akuma no Kaimusho, Fuinjutsu Uzumaki style, Hunter's Demon Prison. Naruto, now have fun. Kurama, Kuchiyos no Jutsu. Kurama, it's time for some snakes to become extinct. Lololololololol. Send KYUB2I2. Kurama, Manda-chan, we will have a good time, although Naruto forbade me to kill you for now, but the rest of you are already worth dust. So Kurama spent the next few hours having fun with Manda and the rest of the entire snake clan, who one by one fell dead before the clutches of the almighty Kyuubi until they were on the verge of extinction. While some tried to escape being reverse summoned, none could for some strange reason, or rather no strange reason, but the combined jutsu of Kurama and Naruto isolated the entire area of the snake clan from being able to escape via space-time jutsus, so any techniques such as reverse summoning to save themselves was totally negated. Manda tried to distract the strongest bijou of all along with the other snakes that were not frozen by fear, while the wise snake concentrated its natural chakra to impact its lethal bite on the bijou. But pity that Kurama, being a clever fox with his 9 tails, swept the ground against all his prey and bit between his jaws the great white snake known as the known snake that began to bleed rapidly until his death. Manda was so stunned by what his eyes saw that he froze while he was brutally beaten by several of Kurama's tails that led him to impact the purple snake against one of the main columns of the cave, thus causing stalactites from the ceiling of the cavern to fall on Manda all over his body, making him unable to move from his place while Kurama finished off the last survivors of the snake clan. Screams of horror came from the last living snakes. Naruto took the opportunity to approach Manda and then kill her using the same jutsu he used with Orochimaru by extracting all the darkness from the snake's heart and fusing it with Naruto's darkness, while his mate Un became much stronger to gain new and incredible abilities that would soon be seen. Kurama was about to disappear when suddenly something caught Naruto's attention, and he asked Kurama to stay and feel the chakra in front of them, coming to the same conclusion as his Jinchuriki. Naruto, who's there? Go ahead, brat. I see you noticed my presence, but besides that, you only reaffirm my thinking that humans are outcasts who should become extinct and that, above all, the Snake Clan should not have trusted humans. Naruto, I'll just tell you that trust, like mercy, are just illusions created by living beings. There's nothing to ensure that something is real or not, that there would be a bond or connection that approves the supposed trust. Just like all living beings with the darkness in their hearts do whatever it takes to get what they want, for which they kill and steal as if it were nothing. That's why mercy, and many other things that humans believe exist, don't exist either. But look at me, here I am, an 11-year-old boy, explaining it to a red snake who, by the way, is cross-eyed and has problems with humans. What a novelty. Even so, I liked you, well, little snake, so tell me if you want an alliance with me. You work for me and I do whatever you want for you, whether it be to recover your eye or to destroy the humans, because my future is without a doubt to destroy all the ninja villages and put all the elemental countries at my feet, and a true kingdom of peace will arrive. There's no reason for me to believe in you as a human, but being a Jinchuriki and a student of that pedophile you killed, I have no doubt you can fulfill your ideals. Besides, I'd like to get out of here and kill from time to time, so I accept the alliance. My name is Garaga, and I'm known as the Dragon Cobra. Naruto, dragon? But you don't have any of that. But I could help you become a real dragon, maybe. Who knows, maybe together we'll even become a real dragon. But anyway, see you soon, Garaga. It's an honor to do business with you. And while you're at it, don't forget to burn the Snake Summoner Scroll. Here's my blood for your special summon. Dark beginnings. Ryuchi Cave. Silence and solitude. That was all there was now in the place where the Snake Clan once was. But now this would no longer happen, since now, thanks to Uzumaki Naruto, said clan was now extinct. Naruto's logic is very peculiar and very difficult to understand, but the reason why he killed the entire clan is still a mystery that perhaps in the future they will be able to understand. The jet redhead now just looked with disinterest at the area where he was, and although he got a special summon with that cobra named Garaga, for the blonde he did not care much about said alliance he got, but even so he would use it on occasions so as not to raise suspicions that he is the only bearer of the Fox clan. Already tired by the boredom of waiting to see if one of the little foxes that he summoned later to confirm that all the snakes had died, this one only bit a finger and summoned another little fox, but this one with all black fur while the others were light fur. Why did he summon it? Well, it was easy for him to tell the other foxes that once they finished their work, they could leave. After that, Naruto simply made the hand seals and, with a reverse summon, returned to the Otogekure laboratory where he had been before. Otogekure. Naruto appeared again in the laboratory where a few hours ago he had finished off his teacher, the Sannin of the snakes Orochimaru, whose corpse was already beginning to stink up the room due to the accelerated decomposition by the parasites that Naruto introduced to devour all his chakra. Naruto simply approached his teacher's corpse again, and unsheathing the katana that he had on his back, he proceeded to cover it with his futon chakra to proceed to cut off the head of the former Sannin, and keep it as a trophy that he kept in a storage seal. Now Naruto only made a clone so that he could take the remains of the body to the tower where the Otokage who was previously Orochimaru was supposed to be, and there in front of all the sound ninjas he put the decapitated corpse of the Sannin of the snakes as a warning sign that betraying him, or just the idea of revolting against him, would end with everyone involved dead after extensive and long torture, as Orochimaru's body reflected. As everyone crowded into the center of the village located in the land of rice, a few ninjas positioned themselves in front of Naruto as they lowered a knee in respect to Naruto to proceed with delivering some men before him and everyone else who had previously seen Orochimaru's bruised body. The reason for all of this, well, easily, those arrested men were the last people loyal to Orochimaru, and now in front of everyone they were nothing more than living symbols of what would happen if one of those present in this entire crowd tried to betray him. Naruto, people of Otogakure, everyone in this cursed village knows me and knows that I am not to be trifled with, and unlike the now dead Orochimaru, things will be very different starting because I will not play the mad scientist with you, but if you dare to betray me, then Orochimaru's experiments will look merciful against the tortures that I will do to you until I break you emotionally and physically like old toys, and you beg for death itself where you do not worry, I will give it to you, and I will personally deliver your souls to the Shinigami so that you suffer in the afterlife also for having dared to try to betray me. Very well, disgusting bastards and hexikunoichis of this filthy village, let me introduce you to my trusted guards and those who will put you in line, or else I will be forced to come and kill you in the way that I already explained to you. These are the always beautiful and elegant bleeding assassin of the bones Kimono Kagaya, the foul-mouthed and vulgar redhead Tayuya, the cold but very deadly sound strategist Kin, the crazy whirlpool stalker Karen, the homosexual addicted to swords and splash of water Suigetsu who surely sticks swords up his Orochimaru's former assistant because the always silent Dr. Kabuto, and the best always for last because the bipolar who will break your bones if you don't share the great feared red-haired Jugo. Now you know you have two very easy options: kneel before me and swear eternal loyalty, or join these bastards and die once and for all. Everyone was silent after what the blonde said, but quickly all the women, for some not so strange reason such as following the blonde who excited them, knelt before him swearing loyalty, while little by little several men began to kneel while others only thought about grabbing their kunais and killing the Uzumaki, but those ideas would never come true because they were pierced by the chains of the Uzumaki who could feel their intentions and gave them a quick death because he pierced non-vital areas, and instead just wanted to enjoy stabbing them a little, while now all the bones of those men were crushed in a very cruel way by the chains that held them like a boa to its victim. With this act happening, the doubts vanished completely, so now the other remaining men bowed before their new leader, while the others only continued to suffer before the attentive gaze of everyone, and those who were still prisoners of Naruto's guard only wanted to flee from the scene in front of them. Too bad for all those people, because Naruto's laughter became much more cruel, while now the said prisoners also suffered said torture, with the bonus that now the Uzumaki charged right on chakra to his chains for an electrifying farewell, while now he made hand seals, and with a little blood present the Shinigami appeared again to take the souls of all his new victims. To say that everyone trembled as they saw the Shinigami appear at Naruto's summoning, and now this spectral being was ripping out the souls of those who were once their companions, partners or whatever, caused them to shiver, and a wave of terror so strong invaded them throughout their bodies that easily more than a dozen trembled while some urinated their pants. With everything that had happened, no one would easily think of betraying Uzumaki Naruto while he was alive, because if one of those present that day were to do so, it was a given that they would never see a sunrise again, and instead of having eternal rest they would live in eternal agony. Now Naruto and his guards retreated while the others remained kneeling until they left with only one idea in mind: never ever contradict the one who could make the rest of their physical and spiritual existence the most terrible torture of all time. Naruto's room. Night had now fallen on all the ninja countries, and while some were preparing to begin the infiltration missions that Naruto assigned to monitor the 5 great nations, in the room of the new leader of the criminal village of the country of Rice, a somewhat particular situation was experienced, such as seeing 2 redheads kneeling in front of their leader, while they performed a double fellatio, while he was kissed by a white-haired woman who was groped by one of the Uzumaki's hands, while a black-haired woman could only moan non-stop at the touch of her leader's fingers going inside her vagina. Well, since Naruto discovered Hex at such a young age and after he had a conversation with Kurama where obviously a strong male with alpha traits like the Uzumaki, it was obvious to him that he should have his own harem of strong women but also that these be great kunoichis to have a good foundation for the new lineage that the Uzumaki clan should achieve. The next day, after a long and very hard night for the girls who were in the Uzumaki's room, they got up to find themselves still very full of the thick white liquid with which Naruto filled them until they were unconscious, only to realize something, and that is that Naruto was not there. As they got up and put on their clothes until they found the boy who made them his in the lotus position in the private training camp that once belonged to Orochimaru, while some clones were in other places now studying jutsus that were in the base to be able to fulfill their goals. But if you really wanted to know what Naruto was doing, just think that he was discussing some things with a huge orange fur fox, Naruto's mind space. Naruto: now very well, Kurama, tell me something. Is it possible for a Jinchuriki to possess more than one bija? You know that I would never use them as weapons, but I'll need more of your brothers, and not just you, for all the plans I have and that you should know about, right? Kurama: Gaki, what I'll tell you is something that no other human knows, and what you're asking is possible, but only in certain individuals, and for life reasons you, as an Uzumaki, but especially for now, having Senju and Uchiha blood in your body, qualify for it. Well, your altered genes begin to develop the Otsutsuki blood in you. Naruto: Otsutsuki? What the hell do you mean by that, and what does it have to do with the Uzumaki, Senju and Uchiha clans? Kurama: Otsutsuki like Hagoromo Otsutsuki, but you humans for centuries have called him the Rikuta Sennin, but for us the Bija he was our father. You see, Naruto, a long time ago no person had chakra, but after some events 2 babies were born from the first chakra wielder Kagaya Otsutsuki. These were Hagoromo and Hamura Otsutsuki, who would later be the ones who sealed their mother after they found out that she was evil, and in the process they locked the Jubi in Hagoromo, making him the first Jinchuriki of all. Naruto: stop! 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 What do you mean by Jubi if there are only 9 of you? Besides, what do the clans have to do with all this? Kurama: brat, let me finish or I swear you will stay without knowing anything else, understood? It's fine where I stayed. Yes, the Jubi. The Jubi was a being formerly known as Shinju that I will tell you about later, but so that the Jubi would not be released after Hagoromo died and destroyed the whole world, he decided that the best thing would be to separate the Jubi into 9 parts, and thus we the Biju were born who see the Rikudo as our father. Anyway, to avoid that when the Biju were free someone would catch us and try to gather all the power again to reform the Jubi, Hagoromo had to leave his legacy to one of his 2 sons, but again after family problems they separated after a fight. While the eldest founded the Uchiha clan, the younger one in turn was the first ancestor of what would be the Senju clan, but among some Otsutsuki of those who would be Senju decided to separate and move in peace to an island where these were the Uzumaki. That's why all of you are descendants of the Arikudo Sennin clan, but you, who have the gene of the 3 clans, will undoubtedly gradually become Otsutsuki, and you will be able to house other Bijus, but with the risk that perhaps the Jubi will form. But I know that you will not let that happen, Gaki. Naruto: okay, I understand everything, and now let's start pulling the strings because in 4 years I want the total reconstruction of Uzureti. Kurama: very well, Ototo, we must strive for that to happen, and never forget that I want revenge on that damn masked man with the Sharingan. Naruto: don't worry, Kurama, and when we find that masked man I will make him suffer for everything he has done to make our lives hell, and then I will let you play with him until his soul is disintegrated by you, and then Shinigami will have fun with it. Kurama: I would be pleased with that, and now come out, your bitches are already here, a little fox bwajajajajaja. Naruto: damn hairball. Real world. Naruto knew he was special since he was born, but he never knew the reason why. When he met the Shinigami who locked Kurama inside him, he already had an idea that he was special for being a Jinchuriki, but then with Shin's revelation, that he was not only a Jinchuriki but also finding out about his gift, the Meitun, and being the heir of a powerful clan, that terrified everyone because they already had him incredibly surprised. But how to improve the surprise that he was special? The answer was simple when Orochimaru, in one of his cruel experiments with him, introduced other genes and then gained what would be his greatest triumph. The greatness of being able to possess Otsutsuki blood and being able to obtain with it not only possible lost Kekii Genkais but also being able to house the 9 bijus inside him. He had a future to create, and dreams to fulfill, but above all he had a pending revenge not only against the villagers and ninjas of Konoha but also with the rest of the villages for having destroyed the lineage of the Uzumakis. Now it was his turn not to be an avenger but the one who would slowly and painfully destroy all the nations from within, so that when they thought that the tiger's neck was already broken, the tiger would then open its eyes again and jump to tear apart those hunters who thought they were already dead. For Naruto, the time of his revenge was near, and now they will know that once they made the poor Uzumaki boys suffer, their lives would end in the cruelest way, being tortured until their last breath under the claw of the Fox of Darkness, who from the shadows was already planning how to finish them off in the worst way. Naruto, I see that you have arrived here or not. Kimono, Kin, Karen and Taiyuya, I have an important mission for you, so bring Kabuto, Jugo and Suigetsu here. Now leave me alone for a minute while I fix some things, understood? Kimono, it's okay Hinata, I know that you're not a monster with us and you don't want us to see that whole side of you, but it's okay, we love your dark side and thank you for healing me and making me happy, just like them, I think, but we will always be loyal to you. Karen, I agree with her Naruto-kun. Taiyuya, for the first time, I'm on the same page as the damn formality princess and the crazy stalker of a cousin of mine. So we'll comply. But when I get back, I want you to open my ass with your enormous Uzumaki gene rod. You got me, brute jet black with effeminate red hair. Naruto, tell me that one more time and the only thing you'll get is a very, very special Orochimaru training genjutsu. Don't tell me you're thinking about that torture you created. Gaki, what would you do to me if I were that Kurama or not? I don't think you want to live it either. Remember that you are susceptible to my Sharingan. Damn Ototo, watch your language. Oniai-san, ha 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 ha. He had to be the son of a tomato. Kin, sounds like a good punishment for the rude tomato. Smile. Taiyuya, who are you calling tomato, bitch? Kin, me, bitch? If you are, then just a bad mouth bitch. Naruto, shut up already you two girls, or else you'll both suffer a worse punishment. Angry. Kimono, girls calm down, scared. I don't want to experience that again. Traumatized face. Taiyuya, Kin, Karen, that? Kimono, if Naruto-kun's worst genjutsu torture was so horrible that my mind still trembles just thinking about it. The girls didn't let Kimono finish as they fled the scene in terror. Meanwhile, a now smiling white-haired girl smiled at the man who saved her and stole her heart. Her little prank had definitely worked, and now the 3 unresolved problems fled the scene faster than ever. Naruto, so that's not IT? Mocking. Kimono, well, Naruto, shut up, you've earned your reward when you get back. Taiyuya will go investigate IWA with Karen, Suigetsu, and you and Kiri, while Jugo and Kin head to Suna. For now, we'll stay away from Kumo, as its security is extremely tight, and we won't be able to enter under false identities. Kimono, okay, I'll tell you and leave you with your experiments in peace. Now that Naruto was alone, he only made some hand seals so that the room was completely sealed, while now a secret compartment opened from the floor and slowly the Uzumaki alone went down each step until he found some Siamese twins, a fat orange-haired man with a bad attitude and a guy with an appearance similar to a spider. All of them were tied up and with chakra needles that immobilized their bodies so they could not move their limbs and tried to escape. But of course for the 4 or say 3.5 subjects present there, escape would be impossible because Naruto had locked them in a secret hiding place with many high-level Fuinjutsu anti-escape seals. Naruto, now guys, I hope you have missed me because since Orochimaru did not make us train together I never saw you again there, but now you will help me with something that surely does not work for you anymore. Well, you see, when the Shinigami helped me by tearing out Orochimaru's soul from his body, he also tore out the portions of the soul that were in each curse seal, and now they are all decomposed. But with your sacrifice during the next few months I will find a way to make that seal not only more powerful than it was but also fix the problems that carrying said seal brought, such as the erratic loss of control and etc. But I hope you understand that your lives are only to satisfy this project, then I do not know if you will survive afterwards, so I hope there are no hard feelings. Yokan, damn miserable you see. Naruto, too bad, I wanted to do some experiments on Siamese twins and genetic compatibility. But well, one less mouth to feed and easier now having to experiment with fewer test subjects. Sakan, Yukon brother, please answer me. Naruto, the headless man won't listen to you, but now I have another problem. I have to separate his body from yours so there aren't any problems with the investigation. The cursed seal of the demon fox. Otoge Cure. We continue in Naruto's secret hideout in the underground base under the village that was founded by bases of renegade ninjas all together under the power of Orochimaru, and now the only thing we can hear are screams and cries of pain from Sakan, who suffers from the procedure he is going through. Naruto slowly with a knife cut the section of the back that joined the bodies of both conjoined twins without the only surviving brother going through an anesthesia process. Naruto, although he did not say it, was enjoying how poor Sakan collapsed emotionally because now the brother who had been attached to him all his life was now dead, and the last bond that remained to him was now surgically removed from him in a painful way. But don't think that Naruto not only did it to break Sakan psychologically but also gave Sakan a chance to say goodbye to his brother so that maybe and just maybe the way Sakan sees it, Yukon had a merciful death, and now he was going to give him a good eternal rest. Naruto was an extremely unpredictable person, but like any fox, any move is a future strategy, and now he only saw someone who could become a very strong lackey if he was motivated in the best possible way. Now that his brother was gone, there was no other voice to be his conscience. Now he just had to open his mind and whisper in his ear the right words to turn this miserable subject into a great weapon capable of obeying any orders so that the Uzumaki's revenge could be fulfilled. Sakan was still suffering, but he didn't know why the procedure took so long, and although it hurt him deep down in his soul, he already wanted it to be over. Sakan, WWYW what? PORWETARDATANTO. Naruto. Simple Sakan, even if it hurts, I'm doing it slowly so you can have a few last moments with him. I know you're mad at me for killing him, but look at it this way. The 3 or 4 of you were going to suffer a lot so I could have mercy on your brother even if he's Sakan. So now you have 2 options. Think that I killed him out of mercy, and I hope you believe that I have a great purpose for you waiting even though the path is full of pain and suffering, or are you going to believe that I only did it out of selfishness and pure evil? You decide? Sakan. NARUTOSAMADJ.EMESERVIRLE with on my soul. Naruto. Very well, Sakan. I'll let you serve me and be my left-hand man if you earn it by surviving this process. But the first test is accepting the total separation from your brother and you. So tell me, I'll start now and just cut what's left of the union between your body and Yukon's so that only you remain intact. Okay, Sakan. Si na aru to sa ma. Naruto. Very well, Sakan. It's time for you to say if you have any last words or thoughts you want to tell your brother before your new journey. Sakan. Si na aru to sa ma Yukon. Brother, we were never men of words and we never had to say anything to each other in truth either because we were always connected and we were as one even if we weren't. Without a doubt we have never been of feelings, but I will miss you a lot, brother. Now it is my turn to faithfully serve Naruto-sama for the rest of my life. See you later, Yukon. I will see you in the afterlife. Orate mi ne ah na ru to sa ma. Naruto. Okay, Sakan, do you want me to anesthetize you before continuing? Sakan. No, Naruto-sama. Naruto. Okay, now I've really broken it, and it will be my most faithful toy until I don't need it anymore. Ha 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 ha. Then Naruto grabbed a somewhat larger scalpel and to simplify the operation then skillfully covered it with his wind chakra to cut the remaining tissues that joined both bodies. Now Naruto had severed the neck to the shoulders and only remained to cut the external part of the torso of the dead twins so that the procedure was ready, but this was undoubtedly the most difficult part of all, because in this portion of the body both were really joined, and it would be necessary to tear out not only the spine but also to be careful that the Uzumaki did not disable his toy so soon. So for safety he charged a little right-hand chakra in his hands and with another scalpel turned it into a short laser-type sword and quickly cut the skin between Sakan's body and Yukon's corpse while the tissue melted from the electric cut. Yukon's body was bleeding non-stop as Naruto now pulled chains from his back to hold Yukon's body while slowly the chains receded as Yukon's body was separated from Sakan's until finally it was almost completely separated. Now between futon and right-hand scalpels, the Uzumaki was opening the entire space between the backs of both twins from the middle area down, but now he had to fracture and completely separate Yukon's spine until they were completely separated. Naruto was growing impatient as the operation had already gone on long enough. But it was time to cut it short even if it was much more painful, so it would be best to knock out his toy before it was damaged. Then with a strong blow to the back of his new toy's head, he fell unconscious on the operating table while now grabbing an industrial hammer like the ones he used to torture Orochimaru before and now repeatedly hitting Yukon's first lower vertebrae. With more repetitive blows to Yukon's vertebrae, they were finally beginning to turn to dust, and now with strong pulls on the chains by force against the opposite side of Sukuna, both bodies were finally completely separated. But the operation was not over yet because now there was a great lack of skin on Sukuna's back, and in order to fulfill the requirement that he remain alive, then with some needles and thread he began to sew the skin stitches to close the blood outlets. However, that would not be enough to close a wound as serious and deep as that. Now in order to achieve that, he had to use Keton chakra and cauterize at high temperatures the wound that had shrunk thanks to the stitches plus a patch of skin that he took from Yukon's corpse to see if with medical ninjutsu treatment, so that the skin would heal with some treatment from Kabuto without a doubt. Now that everything was over, Naruto called Kabuto and left him in charge of everything while he now retired to study a little about what he still did not understand about Orochimaru's curse seal. Naruto's room. Naruto's gloomy and dark room that was only lit by candles giving it a more chilling touch was now invaded by the owner of said space, who was now going to read to understand some things. Seeing the seals in which Orochimaru wrote down his discoveries at the time that I believe the curse seal, now Naruto fully understood the use of Orochimaru's soul inside the seals as a regulator of the natural chakra of senjutsu, in addition to also releasing the negative feelings repressed inside those who carry the seal, and as their darkness grew more, the power that the seal granted them would then be much greater. In that way now Naruto had designed what could be one of his darkest plans without a doubt, and the best way to make the new seal would be between the use of the Meiton and the chakra of his brother Kurama. But to be able to increase the power of his new soldiers he would then have to completely darken their hearts, but with Meiton without a doubt that part would be easy in the long run, although the real problem will be the difficulty of integrating some of Kurama's chakra and fusing it with the Meiton so that both feed each other, and it is not a power that has to be recharged over and over again. Perhaps senjutsu would be the solution to the problem of feedback from Meiton and the Biji chakra, but to absorb senjutsu without a doubt one has to maintain the original mechanism of Orochimaru's seal. New theoretical and practical problems. Because for Naruto now that the seals did not have the soul of the Sannin because the regulation had failed since he asked one of his new obedient soldiers to do the first transformation of the seal, but he died instead by absorbing the natural chakra without control until he died. The Uzumaki at 12 years old was already a high-level expert in Fuinjutsu, but now he had a great adversity. Seeing him as a seal with a purpose for Orochimaru now had to be reborn as something new and fully functional for his purposes. His head was already starting to hurt because with every idea he tried to see if he could replace Orochimaru's senjutsu mechanism with a more powerful and better one. Naruto, hey Kurama, tell me, is there a way for your chakra to attract natural chakra? Kurama, ignorant Gaki, all Biju are formed from natural chakra, and if our Jinchuriki dies it is from the nature chakra that we recover, so obviously my chakra attracts that of senjutsu. One day you will even have to learn the senjutsu of foxes. Naruto, great, now I think I know how to fix the seal, but I'll need your chakra if you allow me, brother. Kurama, no problem Ototo. Naruto, okay, that's all for today, let's continue with the seals. A week has passed since the senjutsu chakra conversation between the two Fox brothers, and now it was time to test if Naruto's new experimental seal would work, and for that they had to test it with some of Orochimaru's old elite guards who decided to stay with loyalty to the dead Sannin. Now Naruto returned to his secret room inside Orochimaru's training room to only find the two old companions of Taiya and the conjoined twins of Sukuna and Yukon. The two battered and malnourished ninjas loyal to the Death Snake now looked horribly with hatred, but at the same time with greater horror at Naruto's enormous and vile smile that now only approached the weak Kidamaru. Naruto, wow Kidamaru, you don't look very well for just a bad week. I know it's been difficult, everything that's happened in a week. First Taiya's betrayal of you who were a team. Second, the death of your teacher at my hands. Third, the death of Yukon, and now Sukuna will swear loyalty to me. Fourth, that your families will already reject you and forget you while you rot here, but now that's over. Now I need your help, so I hope you understand me and don't make me do it the hard way because I'm in a good mood. Kidameru, die you damn shitty bastard, spitting at Naruto. Naruto, so you want it like this? Well, that was your decision. He hits Kidameru's stomach hard until he loses his air, and then releases the chains on his arms so that his body leans forward to give him an upward knee to the head and break his nose. Now he forcefully kicks the weak Oto ninja twice on each leg to break both femurs and make it impossible for him to get up. He releases him from his lower chains and ties him now on a torture table with his back up and his hands tied. Now it's time for you to be of use to me for once. A vial of ink was placed on the table as a Naruto clone ripped off the shreds of clothing that barely fit the tortured Kidameru, who could now feel the sensation of the cold chakra ink used for Fuinjutsu, altering Orochimaru's curse seal while now altering the base code of the natural chakra absorption mechanism so that it was complemented by Biju chakra. The base of the seal was now ready, and to test the next level Naruto then made a pair of hand seals while with his left hand he transferred Kurama's chakra while with his right hand he administered Meitan chakra to the seal. A partial transformation occurred in the seal as the three former quotation marks of Orochimaru's seal changed and transformed into a sort of circle in which the former quotation marks now looked like fangs inside a spiral, and now Kidameru's body mutated as if entering the first stage in a wild and uncontrolled manner. The ninja's nails transformed into long claws that now altered and destroyed his fingers, while the veins in his hands bulged at the same time that hair appeared all over the skin of the spider-loving ninja, making him seem to turn into a wild beast. Now his teeth fell out while fangs seemed to grow to replace his lost human teeth, and the irises of his eyes changed to a violet hue, but his human body could not withstand the changes they were undergoing, so he fell into a state of shock while foam came out erratically from his mouth until his heart exploded and he was instantly immobile. Naruto was seething with anger, but he wouldn't waste any time letting Kidameru's flesh rot, so to be sure he was dead he grabbed his kunai and cut his neck while his carotid artery bled out, and all the blood cascaded to the floor of the room, all before the eyes of Jirobo, who watched silently. Naruto proceeded to use his kunai to enhance it with Futon chakra and begin the autopsy of the spider. After 2 hours, the red-headed Naruto was now drawing conclusions as to why the seal failed and came to the answer. The cells in Kidameru's body did not reject Kurama's chakra or the Meitan, but instead the seal was working completely well, only he did not expect the absorption of Senjutsu to be so fast, so he had to improve the chakra container and a security seal that would not automatically activate the curse seal to release the dark and demonic chakra compound. The mutation of the seal revealed that for the first time it would match Kurama's chakra in the host's bodies so that they became part fox, but Naruto already knew how to make only the most important seals. That of his girls were fox, while already with pinches of altered DNA from other races, which were already being collected, and very soon once the modifications were made to test it. So again 2 weeks passed because Naruto already knew that the fox-shaped seal would work, but he had to be sure that with the other animals it would work too, and not the DNA of said species were physiologically altered due to Kurama's chakra. Like the previous time a few weeks ago, Naruto was already 100% red-haired again after completely controlling the Meitan as far as possible. For now he could keep his hair from turning black as he walked through the private training camp of his property. Now he was almost at the secret hatch. For it to open just like the last time, he made the corresponding seals so that now the room would be sealed and the hatch would open. Going down the stairs again until he found himself in the gloomy torture area where he killed Yukon, he tested the first seal and then did the autopsy on Kidameru. Now it was his turn to see if poor and malnourished Jirobo, who has not eaten in a month except for leftover scraps that Naruto gave him. The redhead stared at him while he sketched that cruel smile that terrified everyone who knew the Uzumaki, because it promised that what was coming would be very, very terrible. Naruto, good afternoon Jirobo, how are you today? Jirobo, please Naruto, let me free, I beg you, or else just kill me and that's it, but I don't want this to continue any longer. Naruto, SSHHH, shut up Jirobo, everything will be over soon. I just want to see how the curse seal works, to see if it works, and if so then you will be free from your pain, I promise. Jirobo couldn't say or do anything when Naruto released him from his chains because he didn't have enough chakra or strength for him to do anything, and above all, even if he tried it wouldn't be enough to escape, less with the idea that he himself could kill Naruto, which was obviously impossible. Therefore, as a somewhat submissive and obedient puppy, he listened to the one who was now the owner of his life and his hope as such, and just lay down on the same table where Kidamaru ended up perishing. Of course, Jirobo did take off his shirt by himself. He turned his head a little to the left until he could only see the same bottle of ink that he saw a couple of weeks ago, and could only tremble in fear as he remembered how horribly his last companion died. For the first time in his life he felt the touch of the ink on his back more towards the shoulder, where he now felt two different chakras that he could observe the last time that now entered his body, while the seal again before Naruto's eyes changed. The quotes closed as a red and black spiral formed as new lines emerged from the whirlpool to form a new symbol, which was the head of a fox, while the whirlpool is now truly the eye of the fox that represented Kurama. Jirobo felt stronger than he ever felt with Orochimaru's curse seal, but now Naruto wanted to see how the seal worked, so he activated it remotely without consulting the orange-haired man who couldn't say anything, while the natural chakra spread through his body without releasing tribal tattoos, while the veins did change color a little, and in the first phase, his claws grew while his strength and muscles increased in such a way while a little fur grew. Now moving on to the second phase, Jirobo's entire morphology changed as he seemed to resemble a bear more and more until he was a complete humanoid bear with long claws as sharp as kunai's dark fur, and he released a terrible, dark chakra that undoubtedly originated from the Meitun. Naruto smiled happily because his creation was now a total success, and what better way if his secret experiment would work if he could already make it work with a test subject with the new curse mark of the demonic fox active. So he made a new hand seal on his hand, and now marks like chains appeared all over Jirobo's body, so that now he felt that all the strength he was gaining was expelled out of his body in a form of blackish aura that was slowly absorbed from the palm of the redhead's hand. Every more that Naruto absorbed, then directly Jirobo became much weaker and partially lost the transformation until finally he lost it all and was on the verge of death, while Naruto smiled very, very happily with that sinister smile that characterized him. Jirobo, Yamehashecho, Naruto. As I promised, I'm just taking you out of your pain, but since you're going to die I don't have to hide it from you since we're alone. You should know that each of Orochimaru's seals had a fragment of his soul. In case he died, he could always be reborn from a new body. On the other hand, my seal gives them the power they need while their inner darkness grows stronger too, but if they decide to betray me, they are close to death, or by my command, like now the seal they have will spit out the darkness that I myself gave them, but now stronger, and will return back to my interior, but now I will be stronger without a doubt thanks to their sacrifices. Well, that's all now. Jirobo dies. Naruto proceeded to crush Jirobo's neck, who was now on the ground, and break it completely until the former fat man of the elite died. Now free of any problems with the residuals of Orochimaru, all Naruto would focus on was multiplying his forces, becoming larger and therefore accumulating what was necessary for Yuzu to be reborn from the ashes. Now Naruto created the necessary clones so that he could begin to put the seals of the demonic Zoro on the most helpful soldiers to him who were still in the village. Naruto, ninja villages, very soon their suffering will truly begin. The beginning of the legend. Otogekure Tower. We see a young redhead, about to turn 13 in about 9 months, now leading the small criminal village of Otogekure, which in the last 2 months has grown with more rogue ninjas who have wanted to join his cause. However, although there are more ninjas to carry out illegal missions and everything to enrich the treasury that Yuzu would rebuild, they still don't have enough to start everything. Despite the bad side of that, the only good thing that happened over the last 3 months that ended yesterday was the return of the ninjas that Naruto sent to investigate the elemental countries of Suna, Iwa, and Kiri. Now he had information not only about these villages, but he had also learned of several possible targets of interest, such as clan members with good Kekkai Genkai with which the Uzumaki clan could later enrich itself. Which is why he was going to send different ninjas to infiltrate enemy lines so that they could leak vital information or to manipulate evidence, and cause wars between the different ninja villages so that while they killed each other he would take what he needed and then end up killing them. Naruto was truly delighted by everything he had heard recently from his most loyal guards, including his 4 wives, who had been rewarded upon returning, but the good news didn't end there, as he also learned that Suna would be sending several businessmen here to Otogekure to negotiate a secret alliance with the aim of invading a village soon, thereby shattering the balance between the 5 nations. But the Uzumaki knew that the more time he spent in Odogekure, the more rust he would get and wouldn't gain the reputation he deserved, and he was undoubtedly seeking the attention of the villages. What better way to gather assets than when they were sent directly to him? For this reason, Naruto was now designing the task plans that the Otonin would complete under Kimono's command, helped of course by Karen and Kin, while the others were in charge of maintaining the peace in the village. After that, Naruto would leave for a few months until he found something to do, but what he really wanted to do was get money and information from the other villages, and that was what he would achieve. Konoha. It's been more than 5 years since the former blonde Uzumaki, now redhead, was missing, and some things had changed. Although Hiruzen was still in office, his attitude changed almost 180 degrees, and the same one who was once a kind and calm Kage returned to being one who didn't let himself be screwed over so much, although because of him for so many years, because of that the civilian side gained so much power that it eclipsed the power that the ninjas used to have. That, especially in a ninja village, was obviously bad, so the village at least hasn't stagnated, but its level of ninjas has certainly dropped quite a bit. But one of the things that worried him most is that a few months ago one of his Tokubetsu jounins, Orochimaru's former student, the purple-haired Anko from INT, had reported that her snakes had disappeared, and not only that but also her summon had no longer appeared, meaning that she had been rejected by the clan or something else had happened. Sarutobi only sank deeper into his troubles upon hearing this, and knowing that all of this indicated something far more vile than normal. But he was no longer the same young man for whom he was known as Shinobi no Kami. Despite having the 5 chakra natures, he no longer possessed the same strength he had in his youth, so he would no longer have the strength for another ninja war. Sarutobi couldn't stand it anymore. The pain of losing his wife, and then when he ignored his gaze of the young Uzumaki and lost him on a dangerous October night, in addition to the fact that he was accused of a massacre that took place on the outskirts of the village. What could the Sandaime Hokage do when the situation of his village was now somewhat precarious in relation to the other powers such as Kumo? So if they fell a little more, Kumo would become the most powerful of all the villages, but thanks to Kami for the well-being of his health, at least there are still ninjas between rank A and S that keep the village on top. However, he still wondered if the little, rebellious and lively boy was still alive, and when he thought about him he undoubtedly also thought about how much he failed Minato and Kushina by not being able to take care of Naruto. The poor boy should already be over 12, and in less than a year he would be becoming a genin if he had stayed all this time in the village. But what Sara didn't know was that very soon their paths would cross again. Country of the Earth. We are now among some rocks, now in a very rocky area in which you can only see many stains and pools of blood that form in the center of what would be a beautiful setting for any serial killer, and is that we find ourselves in what could be called a merciless massacre where pieces of human flesh were spilled everywhere just like an abstract work. All this was seen by a redhead from above a part of the rock where he admired what had recently ended with some rival mercenaries who wanted to mess with their prey, but now nobody would remember them, although some of them had a price on their heads, so only that would collect while the rest would be food for the scavengers of the area, since Naruto was not so cruel as to waste good meat on the vultures and buzzards of the place. Perhaps these mercenaries would not have a funeral or burial, but at least from the Uzumaki's point of view, what remained of their victims' bodies would now be donated to nature. Now that the interruptions were over, it was time to continue playing with his prey, so he observed in detail how a trail of fresh blood followed a few meters from where he was watching his work, and decided to play cat and mouse, so he followed the tracks of the injured mouse while a funny laugh appeared on his face. 2 weeks had passed since he had left Odogekure, and he had already killed about 20 criminals, all between C, B rank and the occasional A, but right now he hoped to get a juicy S who due to his fight against the other mercenaries. When Naruto arrived he was already somewhat weak and well, with a poisoned saban from the Uzumaki he had to flee. But do not be fooled, Naruto did not poison his victim to die, but this poison would act as a kind of paralyzer in the first phase and then a powerful hallucinogen worse than any genjutsu that as an objective transformed reality into your worst nightmare, and what nightmare would be complete without the devil himself in person? Humming a song, the redhead had to climb a little further into the area until he reached a point where there was a kind of cavern, and the trail of blood led into the place, which made the Uzumaki smile at an idea that had come to him. The rogue ninja for the first time in a long time had the feeling that he was going to die, something he had never felt again since the Third War ended, and he was very close to dying under the sword of the legendary warrior of the Red Death of Konoha. But now a new redhead who also used the symbol of the Uzumaki clan had come for him, and a feeling told him that if he did not flee he would not survive. However, he could not continue running away because his muscles had frozen, his limbs in their entirety stopped, his breathing had now become slower and heavier. In conclusion to all that, now he felt fear and more fear. Despite the fact that the cavern was somewhat illuminated by special stones inside, now he felt more scared than before because he felt that his mobility was returning, but his legs were shaking as he felt himself in a very bright room. The moment his legs failed him, he could see how on the ceiling there were some animals just like mini monsters that were watching him. He heard a sound like a crack forming behind his back and couldn't let out a scream when now all those monsters on the roof rose up against him, and he saw their fangs digging into his skin until they were all scared away by a dark being that he couldn't differentiate. As this being approached, the ninja could only tremble at the sight of skin as white as death itself and fiery red hair, while imposing horns hung over the neck and a snake coiled around the body of the supposed demon. The ninja screamed for mercy at the demon in front of him, begging to be his lackey, but his screams didn't stop echoing through the cavern when he saw that the red demon was now driving some sort of stakes into his legs and arms, immobilizing him completely. Blood, a lot of blood, was coming out of the ninja's body, but now there was no turning back, and he knew death was waiting for him if he didn't play his cards right. Ninja, demon lord, please let me live, and I will swear my eternal loyalty to you. I will be your hand of destruction and chaos throughout the world if you spare my life. I beg you, please, begging. Sir demon, huh? Let's give Kurama a little scare. Go ahead, Gaki, don't you know who I am? Ninja, quiet. Sir, angry, I asked you if you know who I am, you stupid bastard. Ninja, sorry, begging. Tell me who you are, Akuma-sama. Being, I am the same bloody demon of death, son born of the Shinigami and the Kyubi no Yoko himself, the one who dominates the power of darkness and seeks revenge on the Uzumaki. I see that the Tsuchikage sent some Anbu that are watching me. Well, let's give them a good show too. I am the Yami no Kitsune, but also the demon of death, and now everyone will die. Meitun, hellish illusions of the fox. If the cave was clear before, although Naruto's face could not be seen by the Anbu and could not be remembered by the poor rogue ninja who was delirious, now it was completely submerged in darkness, while the darkest terrors of the Anbu themselves appeared before them. The Anbu began to scream in fear as they fell to the ground and writhed from everything that their minds made them grow. While the fear grew, the poor and delirious ninja entered a nightmare worse than anything he had ever experienced before. Naruto's form in front of everyone became a shadow as his body changed and his claws lengthened, but the most chilling detail of all was those bloody ruby eyes with those wild animal irises that stared at you without letting you go like an eagle to its prey. One of the Anbu couldn't stand it anymore and, after several failed attempts to escape Naruto's genjutsu, gave up with his own kunai, cutting his own neck. The others were about to commit the same act when Naruto's chakra needles appeared, completely immobilizing them, just like the rogue ninja, who preferred death to spending any more time in the presence of this demon. It's only been about 5 minutes since the jutsu started, and now only screams and echoes resounding throughout the cavern, while Naruto was only amused hearing how several made pleas for mercy, but now his salvation seemed to be none. First, starting with his first prey so as not to be rude to his first guest, he moved until he placed his hands on the man's torso, and then used Kurama's chakra and lengthened his nails until they were claws. With his new claws he shredded the clothes of the renegade S-class ninja and then settled those same nails into the subject's body, while little by little they sank into his skin and blood began to flow. The screams intensified while the Uzumaki played with the torso of his new friend to now open the area on the side and remove one of his kidneys, while all the blood spilled completely on the ground, while little by little he reached the area where the immobilized Anbus were waiting for their turn. Closing the subject's wound with Katan chakra while a new scar was acquired on the operated body, Naruto now grabbed the kidney with his hands and placed it at the level of the same ninja's mouth. Being, if you want to survive, you'll have to eat your own kidney. And if you don't finish it, you know what will happen to you. Now the redhead moved among the Anbu until he noticed that one was a woman, so he moved away from the group and left her in an area alone so that she would not be so upset, since he had a different purpose for her. He returned to the place where the Anbu were and very slowly decided then that there were too many to play with since he had other things to attend to, so he only grabbed a kunai and asked each of them to tell their story to see if one deserved to live. Just like that, the first Anbu told his story as if nothing, while now the second told it but added more false details. Details that Naruto could know from all his training and knew when someone was lying, but to make his story darker, the second one said that he had a baby on the way and his mother was in danger of dying if she did not get medicine for a successful operation, but this was thrown into the gutter by the third, who began to say that all that little story was a lie. While the second and third fought each other to see who would survive, the first remained silent, waiting for the conclusion of the demon, who looked at him, and the others with that smile that was scaring him more. The first did not have a family or anything, he was single and only fulfilled his duty after being orphaned, so he no longer cared whether he continued living or not. Although he preferred to live something, he told him that it would not last long. The decision was finally made, and the redhead then decided that the best course of action would be to finish off the three, and that was it. Why waste time making a difficult decision about which ninja lives and who dies? The best thing, without a doubt, would be to get rid of any problems. The redhead then took some kind of liquid from a scroll and poured it over the three subjects, while they were covered in the sticky liquid that the ninjas thought was some infernal filth placed by the demon. However, when they saw a spark, the silent and attentive first Anbu knew that their destiny was now determined in the hot hell. With a simple seal, the frightened ninjas screamed, rumbling and moving erratically as they could, while their bodies were burned alive, all before the eyes of the ninja who desperately tried to devour his kidney. However, seeing that grim scene in front of him was more brutal than all the acts he had committed in his life while trying to earn a living and survive, even if he had to kill or grape. Now there were only ashes of three Anbu left, and only one person left watching everything while he ate the raw meat of his kidney that was already less than half, but when he finished eating he couldn't hold back the urge to vomit, regurgitating the entire kidney, but it didn't matter because for him it was time. But Naruto was unhappy with the result, and had to leave the poor ninja alive. However, now that he vomited his food, well, let's just say that luck was on the Uzumaki's side. With his sinister smile in the air, his game would continue at last. Sir, what's with that smile? Finish your meal, ninja. But I already finished it, Kitsune-sama, begging scared. Kitsune, all I see here are pieces of kidney left to eat, so eat or die. Ninja, Kitsune-sama, please, I beg you, let me go. I can't take it anymore. Kitsune, can't you take it anymore? Then just die. Those were the last words the ninja heard as claws dug into his body and opened up until they tore out his entire heart. The body then became not only a corpse but also a fountain of blood that decorated the gloomy and eerie appearance of the cave. For Naruto, now only a loose nail remained and his eyes fixed on the woman he had previously left alive. Step by step he walked until he was in front of the woman he had previously left alive, so that now they only exchanged glances while Naruto removed his darkness jutsu. The woman was surprised by the physique of that ninja who had tormented his companions, and now also the renegade ninja. The Anbu couldn't believe that the demon from her nightmares was so young and was looking at her with desire, but in a single blink a dark flash blinded her eyes so that the instant she could see again she was now alone, and a voice that disappeared in the distance told her, "Go back home and see what you saw." Without knowing that inside the woman something was going to grow very soon. Reunion. It's been almost 4 months since a new name began appearing among the country's bingo books. A nickname that has left both mercenaries and ninjas and renegades to suffer chills and want to flee for their lives. Since the Yami no Kitsune, or also known as the Fox of Death, made his public appearance before the world by decimating an elite group of Anbu ninjas experts in assassination and special operations, as well as several mercenaries who were competing for the same prey in such a brutal way, it was very poorly received by the ninja villages since he had no respect for anyone. All the villages from Kumo, Suna, Kiri and Iwa have put a price on his head as a ninja on the edge of the SS forever, a stealthy shadow that ends up finishing off his prey because they have never been able to catch him, or even see him well. The only thing known about the young mercenary assassin was that he wasn't quite an adult, and that his hair was a bright scarlet shade that matched the blood of his prey. This only made things better for Naruto, as few people got in his way, and those who did became his toys until they were completely broken, both physically and psychologically, and decided to commit suicide rather than remain the fox's playmates. But they will ask why so much hatred from four of the great powers to a recently new mercenary, because from IWA nothing would be expected since he alone finished off an elite group of his best Anbu plus a group of Jounin and Chunin who watched the surroundings, and now the commerce of said village dropped because it was said that the roads in that area were not safe from the jaws and claws of the evil fox that could be passing by again. Secondly, Kiri, in the middle of a war, the Mizukage did not like the idea that the weapons he had bought for his ninjas and several of his elite groups were all destroyed for having crossed paths with the fox that was walking around there doing its thing. In that last event, 2 of the 7 current swordsmen of the mist lost their lives trying to fight the fox, and therefore not only the strength of the Mizukage fell completely, but also both swords that remained as part of the heritage of the mist were now in possession of the same being. In third place was Kumo, where some of the finest metals for chakra-conducting weapons were mined. These mines were looted and then destroyed by strong explosions, leaving no lightning ninja alive. Although initially, no one would suspect a mercenary of an attack like that, when they excavated the remains of the site and compared the wounds of the deceased with other cases found throughout the ninja world, they realized that the attacker who entered their country and left undetected was the famous fox, who had affected their economy and ninja strength, in addition to turning Kumo's and their country's security system into a joke. However, in Suna, the condition was more serious than in the rest of the villages, because the fox was hired for a mission to destabilize the ninja village, and he only did it because he personally was going to help him achieve his goal of making Suna desperate to attack another power in search of resources for its own survival. The attack was a complete success as expected, so one of the few dams that served as a source of water in addition to the wells and springs from which water was extracted so that the village was completely destroyed, while some water wells were poisoned, which led to a great drought, bringing a tsunami of deaths throughout the village from children to the elderly who died in a couple of long and painful hours after ingesting said water. But where was the then called Fox of Death now? Well, the answer is easy. He is in the land of Iron at the moment in a plan where he planned to kill the leader of the samurai, old Mifune, who once fought with Hanzo the Salamander in his youth. Now Naruto was with the preparations for his plan to be a success because although he loved to play with his victims and the presence of blood, he respected someone like Mifune from being intelligent and acting wisely to being an excellent warrior and being able to kill almost anyone with his sword style that until now only Hanzo has been able to stop. The excitement of the Uzumaki blood called Naruto to have a kenjutsu encounter with him, but for that he first had to take care of the flies of the pathetic samurai, and with whom he would then play if he could. Naruto could boast a lot about the chakra reserves he had, but he was not an idiot. If there could be one or several ways to not make a quick massacre spending a lot of chakra, he would do it, not because he liked painful deaths, although that was a bonus, but because of the fact that chakra was the best weapon, and even if he had Kurama he did not like to ask for his chakra because it was his, not his. Thanks to his skills with genjutsu by Kurama, who trained him in the arts of the fox in terms of strategy, distractions and demonic illusions, because it would be impossible, the answer would be nothing but in collaboration with his fox summoning. He already knew the time of turns and how to alter the water to cause paralysis to all the samurai in the area and its surroundings. Following the procedure, then Naruto reached the source where the aqueducts pass, and from there he began to administer a strong poison that would slowly kill the chakra system of anyone who drank the infected water. But you may wonder what can be so strong that it can destroy entire chakra systems and in passing in large quantities so that it does not dissolve in water. Well, the answer is chakra. Huge amounts of Naruto's chakra with a large dose of Meitan and the demonic power that Kurama told him to use to leave the water as a total murderous medium. Anyone who ingests the water will die in a very painful period of almost 12 hours while all of their body's systems slowly fail and ends with a very horrible death. For Naruto it was only collateral damage if some boy or if all the villagers of said town where the samurai tower now lived fell into disgrace, and many deaths will come because, for better or worse, the more work he gives to Shinigami, the better the rewards will be for him. 2 hours have passed since the redhead spilled the potent corrosive chakra into the water, and it should already be taking its first toll on the human body. Although the dose ingested by each being is different, perhaps if, for example, a samurai or infiltrator had a larger chakra reserve than the others, his death would undoubtedly be much faster. This also served as a backup plan, undoubtedly to prevent other unwanted disturbances from disrupting his plan. But hey, who knows, sometimes playing with ninjas made things quite interesting, plus he could get new toys for later. As if nothing had happened, he just jumped over the fortress wall and launched his fine, non-lethal needles, immobilizing all the samurai and injecting them with a bit of corrosive chakra as a bonus in case they weren't infected, while he just walked inside the shelter. Samurai Tower. Naruto entered the tower, and what he saw enchanted him. Swords and blood everywhere. It seems that the samurai who were previously training with the use of chakra apparently suffered from dementia and began by killing everyone who was present. However, some survivors were covered in blood and losing the same red substance with every passing moment. The samurai reacted and already suspected who the person in front of them was, while those who could barely move because the paralysis had not affected them committed seppuku before they were to be tortured. The other survivors tried to flee while the redhead entered the building, but little by little they were grabbed one by the chakra needles that were hit with great precision in the necks of the samurai who were trapped in complete paralysis. Little by little all the samurai led Naruto to a place where the redhead just smiled, but it wasn't because he had Mifune in front of him, but because they led him to a very fun trap. After that he would kill whoever did this false mission, but first he would have a good time. Naruto, no need to hide. I admit I wasn't expecting a trap, but what's coming next is pretty fun, isn't it? I can feel 13 hidden ambushes, and I have to admit, one of them has something very special. I think Kurama will be quite happy with a good battle. Kitten, run away from here. If Kurama is with him then you won't be able to beat him. Mata-chan, what's going on? Kurama is my older brother, the strongest of all. Do you mean? Naruto, Meitun, realm of darkness. Everything went dark and those Anbu who drank the drink felt their strength leave them, while their hearts exploded into pieces and they fell dead to the ground, while the darkness that was previously ingested by them now joined Naruto's jutsu, strengthening it, while in the darkness some red eyes so bloody and with torn irises came to light, while everyone now truly believed the rumors of those eyes so dead and cold that only assured you pain and a horrible death. Of the original 13 Anbus, now only 5 remained besides Mifune, who tried to look not intimidated by those predatory eyes that watched him as a victim, and not as an equal. With quick instinctive movements in the darkness, Mifune stopped a certain claw that came to attack him head-on in a flash of speed, but things didn't stop there because a few seconds later one of the ninjas shouted to his partner, but he was wrong because Naruto's jutsu also served to confuse sensor ninjas so they would give away his location, and that scream in the form of helping his partner were his last words, while some claws cut him into little pieces and blood could be heard being spilled every moment. After that, only a quick slaughter of the other 3 normal Anbu that were there came, so that only the Anbu Jinchuriki of the Nibi and the samurai general remained. It was an interesting 2-on-1 encounter, but the advantage of the terrain for now was Naruto, who, although he could see inside the good Meitun with Kurama's eyes as a method of intimidation, it undoubtedly also gave him advantages in being able to know what his rivals felt, although Nibi made it difficult for him to read the emotions of its wielder. Nico, Mata-chan, what do I do? What is this darkness? I can't even feel it. What can I do? Garika, use my eyes, they should help you see in the dark, and I don't know, I've never seen a jutsu or something like this that would make it difficult for even the Bijou to fight. Naruto, talking to Matatabi isn't going to help you much. You're on my land, beautiful Nico-chan. Be careful, this fox bites. Don Wantone. Nico, blushing, That doesn't fun. CIOARA. It seems that my kitty found her male, and not bad, dangerous and bloodthirsty. All that's missing is a stud. Maybe you should forget about Kumo and give yourself to him. Yu-chan, Mata-chan, Eki Urusei. Naruto, let's do something. Nico-chan, if I win will you be mine? What do you think? Nico, haha, mass. Doubtful. Mifune, I'm still here. Naruto, oh right, well I'm coming. I'll calm your anxiety. Mifune-kun, Mifune, I think I hurt myself. Mifune now felt true fear when he had to start stopping several attacks based on pure instinct, but with just a glance at the cat-masked Anbu he saw how her eyes changed to yellow and green respectively, as she lunged towards him, and her nails lengthened until they were thin but not like her fox claws. While now he evaded a lunge from Mifune to his position, while a Nico claw approached his face, the redhead just jumped back, dodging the two. Now in a speed sprint with the tip of his sharp claws, he moved in a zigzag to tear apart the clothes worn by the Anbu, who was now scantily clad due to the fox's mischievous game. Nico was now only uncomfortable showing so many clothes because even though they were in the dark, she knew that he was seeing every part of her body, scanning her from top to bottom, and that excited her a little, but without a doubt there was something about that mercenary that activated something in her. Matatabi's help did not help because Ichigo now fell to the hormones that Naruto released as an alpha fox, and in the process that Matatabi inside her reacted to the hormones went against Nico. Not being able to hold on any longer, she just gave up and stopped attacking, while Naruto's smile increased to only concentrate on the old samurai, who now fell into a powerful illusion where the samurai was before a huge fox with several tails, but it was not Kurama if that's what they think, because Naruto still did not want to give himself away. Mifune was static at this, thinking that he was fighting a true demon, but in real life, well, let's say that his body was already static, and Naruto, as the author, he believed himself to be used the old samurai as a blank canvas for his bloody work. With his sharp claws, the mercenary ninja began to tear Mifune's clothes from the waist up while cutting his chest to his belly, around his shoulders and all over his back, to finish off by giving him a complete scratch on his face, while the poor samurai lost one of his eyes and 4 fox-like claw marks appeared as new scars on the samurai's face. Naruto now deactivated his jutsu so that everything was illuminated again by the lights of the torches in the room, while a blushing Nico from the village of Kumo was surprised because the boy who attacked her defeated and massacred an entire samurai barracks, and in the process an elite group of Kumo ninjas plus the legendary Mifune did not seem to be more than 15 years old, her age. Mifune's body fell to the ground while now Naruto walked before the Kumo Anbu, who felt how she got more and more excited when the redhead shortened the distance with her, but to her misfortune Naruto only gave her a short kiss on her neck and a spank, and then said goodbye. Yujuto, ppwhy what tttte vas? Naruto, once you prove your loyalty to me, I'll make you mine. Now I need you as my spy in Kumo. I'll see you in Konoha for the Chunin exams. I want you to bring me good women who are worth it. If you fulfill everything like that and information about your village, I won't hesitate to make you my wife and you'll be my Hexy kitty. Until then, Nico disappears in Ascension, borders of the Land of Fire. It's been 2 weeks since Naruto left the Land of Iron, leaving only the Anbu, Nico, and Mifune alive, so that this would remain as a symbol that if you messed with the good fox you would only be one more prey in his path. Kumo was another that did not go unpunished, because after his ambush attempt, Naruto made an attack against the capital of the Land of Lightning with hundreds of nobles wounded, and among the dead the firstborn son of the feudal lord of said country. Reason why now the daimyo was pressuring and scolding the village for having bothered the fox, and now his eldest son had died, and the income that the lord gave to the village dropped seriously, throwing the ninjas into more difficult missions in order to survive. Now Naruto this week alone ended up with another important prey, and now he was in the forests of the country where he was born. Fortunately or badly for Naruto, right now he felt like a group of very capable Anbus from Konoha were now approaching his position. The redhead only then made a henge and prepared some traps, while now he sat on a branch of the tree, and from a seal on his arm he took out an apple that he began to eat. A short time later a group of 7 Anbus, among them a silver-haired man and a purple-haired woman that Naruto recognized, surrounded him while they tried to interrogate him, but a dark laugh was framed in the henge, while with a seal he activated some explosive seals between the trees that exploded, seriously injuring 2 of the 7, while the other 3 tensed a little. Both Nico and Inu were alert of what could happen. Naruto wanted to play with his victims a little more, and only managed to close his eyes to open them again, but now red and torn and black with that sight of a born predator that scared even the coldest and most experienced ninjas. Bear. No, it can't be him. Eagle. The Yami. Tiger. No Kitsune? Naruto. It seems that the fame of these eyes certainly precedes me, but do we have some cute Anbus here that came to play? Inu. Bear. Eagle. Tiger. Step back. This isn't a game. Warn the Hokage about the situation. Nico and I will give you all the time we can. Naruto. Oh Inu and I, how cruel you are with your Ototo, so many years without seeing us, and now you call Gigi to catch me. Inu, surprised, there's only one person who called the Hokage, Gigi, and called me brother. But that's impossible. Did you, Naruto? Who knows, but Yugao Ne also forgot about me for her boyfriend. Cole, Yugao, na nar. Inu Yutitu? Naruto, the same, but now I answer to the name of Yami no Kitsune, fading the henge. As the henge was deactivated, his body seemed to look more savage while his mercenary clothes returned and his nails lengthened into claws, and in a quick sprint faster than the flickering body technique, he passed by the three Anbu who tried to flee from him but now fell dead to the ground with their carotid arteries torn. Only a moment was enough for the two Konoha ninja to be distracted, and in that moment, only that fraction of a minute was used for 3 deaths to be sown and blood to feed the trees of the forested country. Now the acclaimed and so famous fox only smiles in such a terrifying way that it froze the bones of Inu himself, who thought he was seeing the Kyuubi himself with those enormous teeth. Naruto, so you want me to go home, Hayune and Kakashi and I? Foxish smile. A fox on the leaf forest of the land of fire. They are only 1 day away from Konoha, but doubts kept popping up in the minds of both Anbu, who only saw the 13-year-old redhead who was once a blonde boy who never stopped laughing and was a totally playful person, and now he had become a world-renowned monster for being such a brutal ninja at such a young age. Because in both of their minds they saw how yesterday, in just a moment of carelessness, a gap made by their feelings was taken advantage of by that boy who they had grown so fond of as a child, costing him the lives of 3 of his men. But the purple-haired girl was the one who felt much more guilty than anyone else. It was the boy himself who coldly answered how she focused more on her boyfriend than on him when she should have been working. Maybe if she had been there for him, the little boy would not have run away from Konoha to become that monster who was now in front of her, and just maybe the Uzumaki, and she could be together? That idea crossed the Anbu's mind and she just denied it, but underneath that cat mask, she herself was hiding a strong blush, but for some reason feeling like the wife of such a dangerous S-rank ninja in the 5 elemental countries and who incidentally had some kind of past with her seemed exciting. However, the real reason Yugao felt that way and was in conflict were the hormones that Naruto released into the air to lower her defenses, and very capable over time he could be Yugao's new man, so that his whispers would be orders that she would obey without problem and little by little destroy the village where she was born from within. On the other hand, the silver-haired man was internally scolding himself with great force. First, he had failed the person he could consider his first friend. Then, he had failed him with the promise he made on his deathbed. And now he had lost his other teammate. Years later, he then lost his sensei and his wife, who had been like parents to the silver-haired man, but now he saw the failure of having also failed his son. Due to his irresponsibility and his way of being, his brother had ended up falling into darkness, and what would he do now to bring him back to the light? Kakashi undoubtedly didn't have the answer because he had never been in a predicament like that, but he couldn't let him go again. Now that he knew that Naruto was the Yami no Kitsune, he couldn't risk his little brother's life, so he would do anything to keep him in the village. However, Hatake didn't know that if he thought about keeping those words, a very dark path lay ahead. Even so, there were doubts that Kakashi wanted to know, so with all the courage he could muster from within, he stopped for a minute, just like Nico who was watching him, and like Naruto, thanks to Kurama's ability to read feelings. He knew that the gray-haired ninja wanted to ask something, so he stopped momentarily without looking back. Kakashi, tell me, Naruto, what happened that night? Naruto, mischievous smile, that night? Can you be more specific? Kakashi, the night you ran away from the village. Naruto, that night, what good memories. You know, Kakashi, there is a breaking point. When a person surpasses a certain limit they break, and I stopped being that innocent and weak child. I discovered the power within me, and thanks to him, I was able to defend myself and finish off all those bastards who tried to end my life. When I felt their blood spilling and how the air escaped them, I never felt more free and safe. That's all, the rest is history that I suppose the Hokage will want to know. Kakashi, Naruto, I am really sorry. Naruto, like I said, it's just history, it's already in the past, and I love who I am. I'll never change that. So don't come across as innocent or pitying, because the way I see you, You're not worth me even killing you. Yugao, Naruto, don't say anything, Uzuki-san, we're still wasting time. Kakashi, if I remember correctly, you have a summon, but don't send any to Konoha. I want this to be a surprise. Kakashi just nodded at Naruto's words, good that he had forgotten that part about notifying the Hokage. Yugao, on the other hand, when she heard Naruto call her Uzuki-san instead of calling her by her name, undoubtedly felt like her heart collapsed entirely while Naruto continued on his way, leaving her behind. But what the purple-haired girl did not know is that her insecurity and sadness were felt by the scarlet-haired boy, who already knew that he had caught her in his game, and it would only be the first of many possible captures that he would have in the leaf. Kurama, who had awakened, had observed the whole scene, and although he understood the actions of his younger brother, he also knew that returning to that dark and disgusting hole. Kurama had lived for many centuries, almost a millennium, has seen many civilizations born and fall over time, but among those things that he hated with the greatest resentment possible, he concentrated on a single damn thing: Konoha. The Leaf Village was the most hated place by the strongest Bijou, because there he was not only locked up more than once until the strongest of the Bijou was the first to be sealed, and not only that, there was also Hashirama with the damn Mokuton that screwed everything up, but above all there were the arrogant Uchiha with that Sharingan that they tried to use to control him, and only a few could. If Naruto returned to that filthy hole, then Kurama would watch his brother and all his movements, but there were pros to returning, like ending the life of the last Uchiha, and extinguishing that clan, or maybe not getting to kill all those civilians and their advisors. Either way, the huge orange Bijou was going to have a lot of fun. The next day at 10 in the morning, the same group of 3 from yesterday had arrived at their destination, and in Naruto's eyes it seemed that garbage dump they call a village was still very horrible, but now it looked like a much larger and messier ranch. But still, this is where Naruto would settle for the next few months and secretly lead the village to its ruins, so it was very important that now he keep a relatively low profile and associate with good allies. But who was Naruto fooling, because these months would be very good massacres that looked like accidents, and he was going to leak the necessary information so that Suna and who knows another village could take advantage of it, and come and destroy Konoha while he left with much more loot. Then losses. Everything was starting well, and the only thing that surprised Naruto was the pathetic surveillance at the entrance of the village that would even make the most stupid ninja think, how the hell a village like this hasn't been invaded? After a bad joke by Naruto with some fake blood and a desperate cry for help, the two ninjas got up to see all their surroundings covered in blood like them, while those dark blue eyes of the Uzumaki looked at them wanting to kill them. One of the ninjas fainted while he alone peed until he saw the boy dying of laughter, just like those Anbu who couldn't stand it, and had to laugh even though it was a very bad scare. The walk continued inside the village while all the villagers watched the redhead with curiosity, but when the ninjas saw his mercenary clothes they tensed. But there was something about that guy, according to them, that terrified them. But when they looked at their bingo book and saw a faceless page, but with details of the world-famous mercenary like Yami no Kitsune, who was said to be red-haired and had some kind of marks on his face, most of the Chunin and Jounin who saw that swallowed hard as they ran away, trying to look not so scared. Naruto also saw the precarious way of life of the people of this village, and although he wouldn't admit it, he also had a good view of some kunoichi and civilians who could serve his cause. But something that really made him smile was how he felt Yugao's jealousy come to the surface as she turned to see him behind her. So the purple-haired girl decided to subtly move her hips a little so that the Uzumaki's gaze would return to her, something that already told Naruto that in a very short time his first great conquest would arrive. Rumors were beginning to spread through the leaf, and the mere mention of the famous Yami no Kitsune being in the village sent all ninjas to prepare for the worst. But it was no joke when many ninjas were doubting their loyalty to the leaf before their lives and were already devising a way to survive. At the same time that this was happening, the news reached the Hokage, who went into alert mode and more when he felt the chakras of Kakashi and Yugao returning, but with them too also came one with such large reserves that they left his own small. But this chakra was dark and morbid. Although he tried to see who it was with his crystal ball, only darkness could emerge in his sphere. Feeling how the chakra was already in the tower, the old Kage was alert, although if he came accompanied by two ambushes who were on a mission and was not destroying the village anymore, it was due to something. The old man heard a knock on the door, and giving his permission with a "Come in," 3 figures passed by, leaving a redhead about 5 feet 7 inches tall, physically fit, and no older than 15. But above all, he had fox-like markings on his face that made him look peculiar. Fox-like? That made a click happen in his mind, and when he got to look closely at the redhead, he could see those blue eyes, darker than he remembered, and the old man just stuttered until he said, "Hokage Naruto? Naruto, it's been a long time, old man. I see that you're still sitting in that chair. It's already very worn out, don't you think?" "Hokage, is that really you?" "Naruto, it depends on who you think I am. Well, I am Uzumaki Naruto, but everyone also knows me as the Yami no Kitsune, and I stand before you today because I came for what is rightfully mine. I want my inheritance, and if you don't give it to me, then I will have no remorse in destroying this village." "Hokage, exalted your heritage? Naruto, don't act ignorant or stupid with me," Hiruzen sharply. "I know who my parents are, so save all your crap and call the council already, because otherwise you know what will come and neither you nor anyone else will be able to defeat me." Kurama's eyes. "Hokage, those eyes. So it's true you are the Yami no Kitsune, I see." Depressed. "What have I done?" "Yugao-san, I know they just returned, but please call the entire council to be here in minutes, understood?" "Yugao, hi Hokage-sama." Boardroom. 10 minutes have passed, and now the council room was filling up while the Uzumaki had to wait outside, but he did not waste them because while everyone left their homes to go to the meeting, the redhead sent his foxes to look for information on all the clan leaders and civil leaders as well as the honorable advisors of the Kage. In addition to that, although it was not necessary, so that poor Yugao would fall faster into his arms so he could have fun with her in bed, young Naruto introduced a seed of darkness thanks to his maton, with which she will become more susceptible to his lust and dark desires until she becomes corrupted and cannot bear to be without the Uzumaki and goes after him to his house. Now it was time because he heard the voice of the Sandaime Hokage calling him to come in, and with that his grim smile came to light, while he whistled a song as he entered the place. With his slight whistle and that big smile that scared more than one of the civilians, the Uzumaki arrived before a prostrated man so that he could be seen by everyone, and now the Uzumaki was scanning the place instead of future prey, and we were not talking about his future playmates until they broke, but about women with the power in this village to be his possible sluts in heat. Since the Hokage saw how everyone was looking at the redhead a lot without understanding, he decided to start talking. "Hokage, well, you see, you've probably heard the rumors. So I present to you the mercenary who has all the other elemental countries in a frenzy. Here before you is the Yami no Kitsune, Uzumaki Naruto." Uzumaki Naruto, that name left more than 3/4 of the entire council with their mouths closed, but Naruto could feel their emotions and it was pure fear. That was a funny scene that the redhead was living, because for him such a reaction was priceless while he showed those canine teeth reinforced by Kurama's chakra that made him look really like a fox, and to add fuel to the fire. What better way than to change those beautiful sapphire blue eyes for bleeding ruby eyes with the iris slit to intimacy to everyone? Although a reaction that he did not expect in a certain way was happiness from one of the counselors, one that he knew very well in truth because he had recognized him in his days with Orochimaru. Without a doubt the old Danzo could be a nuisance, but like any dog he could be tied to its chain to control him, and if the old man resisted, well, sooner or later he would still be sacrificed to Shinigami. "Naruto, it seems that a fox ate their tongue," mocking. "Mabuki, Hokage-sama, terrified, what has he done?" "Naruto, easy, very simple indeed, Mebu-chan. I only came for my heritage." "Shikaku, nervous, inheritance? What are you talking about, Naruto-san?" "Naruto, you know Shikaku. If you get nervous and your chakra gets altered, that means you know what I mean, right?" "Shikaku, wow, I didn't expect that. But since I'm already a redhead, I think that your abilities as part of that clan shouldn't surprise me that you were a censor, right?" "Naruto, that's the typical Nara. Even though you seem cold, I know you're collapsing inside, just like that Abirame over there who tries to sneak his insects into my body but can't, just like old Danzo with that pathetic genjutsu. But hey, if you knew who my sensei was, well, you wouldn't be surprised that I know so much about this pathetic village." "Shibi, forgive my lack of respect, Naruto-san, but could you tell us who your sensei was?" "Naruto, no problem, Abirame-san. The one who adopted me when I was 6 years old was none other than my sensei, the Sannin of the Snakes, Orochimaru," mockingly. "Tip Orochimaru?" "Naruto, Yes, ha 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 ha, Hibi-sensei taught me a lot, but he wasn't the only one who taught me, so Furball-sensei also wants to greet you. Hokage Hairball? Isn't that what you are? Shibi Naruto-san. Who is Furball? Naruto. He is a beautiful and tender orange fox with several tails, big red eyes, and an attitude that loves to destroy. I think you know him, right? Naruto. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. Clone. Kurama. Oh, it feels good to go out and play for a bit. I'll teach you later for calling me that. But I think I'll forgive you because you left me some fun with the poor ninja of the civilian council and also plenty of ninjas I could kill. Why don't we spill the blood of this village and go? Naruto, you know I want my inheritance that is rightfully mine alone. Civilian X, and that's rightfully yours. Demo, killed by a kunai to his eye, which pierced his brain. Naruto, Ajum, what I want is my position as legitimate, an absolute leader of the Uzumaki clan and the resources that Namikaze Minato obtained as Hokage. After all, the son of his greatest heroes and prince of the Uzumaki clan must be treated well, or I myself will end the alliance and the protective seals that my clan gave to this shitty village. Hamura, impossible. We won't give you anything, pierced by a chakra chain. Naruto, anyone else who wants to talk? Hokage, how did you find out who your parents were? Civilian X, so this is true, Hokage-sama? Uzumaki Naruto is the son of the Yondaime Hokage? Hokage, it's true. On October 10th, the day the Kyuubi was released, the Yondaime Hokage only wanted to ensure that no child had to suffer that burden. But at least he would know that if he left it to his son, maybe one day his son could control the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto, now you have two options: give me everything that belongs to me, or I will leave this village, join another one like Orochimaru's, and let this one rot while the Uzumaki clan rises again somewhere else. The darkness that invades everything. Konoha, Council. Naruto, so what do you decide? Don't forget that I also know some things like Orochimaru's shady business dealings, including the ones you have, pointing at a civilian. Civilian? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Naruto, sure, because I would be quite sure that the first time I saw you years ago you bought a poison from Orochimaru to be able to kill your entire wife's family and make her the heiress of all his family's wealth. Then about 2 years ago, if my memory serves me correctly, you ordered to organize her death under an attack when she would go out on business in a relationship with the land of the country of flowers, where Orochimaru sent one of his ninjas to assassinate her, and you took control of all your family's businesses and your lover became your new wife. After that, your entire organization has been protected by Orochimaru's men in exchange for test subjects from the hospital you run here in the red zone, where the missing, including vagrants and homeless children, end up in the hands of my sensei. Hokage, how do you respond to these accusations? Satoshi, Hokage-sama, I'm innocent, I swear, don't believe this demon. Naruto, if you don't believe me, then you can check this out, since I have a copy of all of Orochimaru's works. Well, they are hidden, but I had to come to Konoha with some evidence, right? Hokage, Satoshi-san, I can definitely recognize your handwriting, as well as your signature, and everything in between, letters to Orochimaru and vice versa. For committing treason against the village, that's punishable by death. Satoshi, Hokage please, killed by another chakra chain. Hokage, can you stop doing that, Naruto-kun? Naruto, you can't blame me. It's fun to kill these civilians who think they're great but are nothing more than prey to a fox, hee hee. Danzo, very well then, Sarutobi, given all this new information, I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt under surveillance, and have him join our forces. In exchange we will give him his inheritance. Mabuki, Danzo-sama can't be serious? Danzo, it's the best thing for the village. Imagine the fear of our enemies when they know that the dreaded Yami no Kitsune is in our village on our side. Naruto, it will be a pleasure to see you more often, Mebu-chan. Wink. Hokage, very well then, Naruto-kun. Even though you have what it takes to face a group of capable chunin, I think it would be best for you to acclimatize to the village, and what better than with the heirs of the clans who will be your fellow leaders in the future. Therefore, you will go to the academy this last week. Naruto, you have got to be kidding. Danzo, I agree with the Uzumaki. How will you put him as a genin? Naruto, senility has already given you Sarutobi. Hokage, silence. Danzo, remember that I am the Hokage, and Naruto-kun, if you want your inheritance you will have to adapt to the rules of the village. Understood. Naruto, what do you say, huh? Clone, Kurama, it could be fun, hee hee. Go ahead, many minds and dreams to break before they start puff. Naruto, sigh, okay old man, you win. Hokage, you'll start tomorrow, and it'll only be this week. You have nothing to lose except trying to make friends. The meeting is over. Everyone is dismissed. Naruto, I guess you want me to stay. Hiruzen, that's right. Hokage Tower, Kage Office. Hiruzen, very well Naruto, what can you tell me about Orochimaru? Naruto, what do you want to know? Hiruzen, he had more allies here, right? Naruto, honestly, I don't remember all the names on the list, and there were very few who dared to go in person with Orochimaru, but I would have to look for the information where he hid it when I can leave the village. Hiruzen, would you really do it? Naruto, of course I will for the right price. Hiruzen, what are you talking about? Obviously you'll be rewarded with a mission for helping your village. Naruto, that's a small amount of money. If you want the names, when I have them, I want half of their wealth and the companies they ran. You'll keep the other half for the people. That's my deal. Do you accept it or not? Hiruzen, isn't it debatable? Naruto, no. Anything else? Hiruzen, where are Orochimaru's bases? Naruto, I don't know the exact locations, but there's one here in Konoha that I can show you another time. Otherwise, there's a decent-sized one in every major elemental country among the 5 nations. Hiruzen, you're training and all? Naruto, that's personal, but I'll just say that I was a pedophile's plaything for a long time. Hiruzen, I'm truly sorry. Naruto, old is past now, I want the key to the Uzumaki mansion. Hiruzen, here you have them. Naruto, okay, we'll see each other at the end of this week for graduation, right? Hiruzen, so it shall be. Minutes later, Naruto was walking through the village while taking notes in his brain about the security and structure of the buildings of the Leaf Village to draw up plans for the invasion. Naruto was not stupid, and he was also a very good censor, and even if they tried to hide because they all had chakra and the Uzumaki felt every drop of said power in the guards who were hidden in the shadows. Going to an alley, it turned around while the ninjas who were in charge of watching it remained static, wondering what the redhead would do, but when they were all caught by some strange chakra chains they tried to replace themselves with whatever to save themselves, but instead of that, nothing had happened. The reason is that they did not have chakra, or they could not have enough control of it to do a simple academy technique due to the chakra imbalance that occurred due to Naruto's chains that continuously absorbed their energy until they were withered and dead like the mummies that they would be. Little by little there was nothing left but the remains of poor ninjas who could not escape from the predator that transformed them into lifeless and unrecognizable remains of what they once were, while only leaving one alive enough to speak. But when he noticed the inscription of root on his mask, he did not have to do much except tear out his heart with his Kitsune claws to give him a somewhat different death while keeping the heart in a seal. Now the Uzumaki walked to the edge of the forest where he no longer felt presences following him, but there were undoubtedly many underground, so he only made his own way to the underground tunnel where he was surrounded by several dozen ninjas who only became more prey for Naruto, who was in no mood to fight. After a short while he reached the center of the tunnel where there was an underground base that could undoubtedly be in the middle of the village, and no one would notice what was there. The same counselor who had allowed him entry to the village was now watching him analytically as he sat sipping hot tea in a chair. Naruto, what did you call me for? Shimura. Danzo, wow, you took so long, and where are my guards? Naruto, there aren't many of them left, but here's what I know, you're probably missing one. Throwing him the heart he extracted earlier. Danzo, I see that Orochimaru trained you very well, but I still don't understand why he doesn't talk to me about you when he and I are partners in certain things. Naruto, like on your arm, right? Danzo, so you know about that. Naruto, I know you did certain things together, like the experimentation with Shodame's cells, in which an entire arm of those Mokutan cells are in your bandaged arm, but why didn't he tell you about me? Simple. He doesn't trust you like you do him. For example, you knew of his wonderful obsession with the Sharingan, but even so, you having hundreds of it due to the Uchiha massacre, you never gave him any. I also know that you only allowed me entry because I could be the reason you are framed as a traitor to the village, and never be able to return to the village you love so much. Danzo, you're certainly a clever fox, armed with all the information to set a trap for anyone. So, I'll make you a proposal. Help me become Hokage, and I'll give you anything you want. Naruto, here's my counteroffer. I'll take down some of the shady businesses in this village and support you with your demands to Kage if you allow me to acquire all of those companies, and I'll be the new manager of those shady businesses. Danzo, why do you want those businesses? Naruto, my personal business. But I hope you're not upset about your partner, so I'll leave half of Hamura's business to you if you accept at once. Danzo, I never liked him anyway, so it's a deal. Naruto, very well Danzo, this seems to be the beginning of a good alliance until all the darkness in your being starts, he. Danzo, so it will be until I make you an obedient weapon or have to destroy you. Naruto then decided to leave there to continue his walk through the village while being watched by all the girls who looked at him closely with those fox features, but also the long, wild scarlet hair that combined with his good muscles. In addition to that face with that mischievous smile undoubtedly hypnotized them, and more to a blonde with a hairtail who was surrendered at the feet of the boy who passed by her side. After a while he met a face from his past waiting for him in the park he was passing through. This was Yuzuki Yugao, who stared at him with clear concern accompanied by sadness. The Uzumaki knew that his past movement had worked, and now the Kenjutsu user had been caught in a game that Naruto moved to his liking. Naruto, Yuzuki-san, can I do something for you? Yugao, why do you hate me? Why am I not your Yune anymore? Naruto, for having been a real sister before I appreciated you, but you left with that boy, and not only that but without your protection the entire village turned against me again. One day I went to your house for protection, but I didn't understand what was happening. I heard screams from inside, but I was able to peek through a small window that was there until I grew up. I didn't realize that you were sleeping with that guy before wanting to protect me. The worst thing is that your beloved little boyfriend was one of those who attacked me and stabbed me with his sword the day I ran away, but I still haven't been able to lay my hands on him. So if I were to kill him, would you kill me? Yugao, no. That can't be true. Hayakun, it's not like that. Naruto, so you are the one who lives in lies and don't look for me more knowledgeable Yuzuki-san. Naruto then left the woman alone, but not before noticing how the woman's heart was filled with anguish and doubts because of her mate. For Naruto it became easy to understand negative feelings, so over time he learned how to manipulate people so that those feelings would surface in their hearts so that they were easier to break. Although he lied in some parts, like the scene where he saw them fornicating, there was still some truth, like the one in which Hate tried to kill Naruto on multiple occasions, for which there was still a lot of resentment from the Uzumaki towards him. And what better way to destroy him than using Yugao against him until the purple-haired girl ended up in the Uzumaki's bed, where she really always had to be once he grew up. Now Naruto had arrived at the comfortable but not so small Uzumaki mansion, which turned out to be a normal house but with 3 floors, except that it was surrounded by a wall and few ninjutsu seals that made it impossible to access unless you had the real key. By the time Naruto opened the scroll that should have been the key, he realized that it was just a fake trick, while the real key would be his blood to enter. When he was able to access the inner area of the house, he was surprised that it was more spacious than what he saw inside. Naruto then decided to walk around the house to see that his bastard father had a private study where his notes on his 2 techniques that made him a name for himself were. So although he hated it, they would undoubtedly be good weapons for his arsenal. He also found a library with all possible information on Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu, but following the steps of the Uzumaki way, as well as multiple jutsus of techniques of all kinds. In the backyard, although a little neglected by time, there was a garden to grow their own food, as well as a dojo for the practice of Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. But what most amazed the redhead was finding a secret room as large as the entire house in the underground, where his mind dazzled with what could be his underground base of operations. The Uzumaki shinobi was now ready to begin his stay in Konoha, and what pleased him most was the number of beautiful women in very important positions who could end up being his obedient females in exchange for a dose of his cock. Therefore, his most important objectives would be Mabuki Haruno, who was a retired ninja who had become the wife of a civilian and over time was manipulated by her husband until her reasoning changed to that of a radicalist, but Naruto would be in charge of turning her into the most obedient boar of all. At the same time, he had some other objectives that he could observe in the meeting, such as the leader of the Inuzuka clan, who was a bitch in a clan of pure dogs, but none had completely dominated her, so a true male like this fox would be the one to make her submissive. Among other plans, he would also take control of all the clans through the wives of the leaders, from the female heirs, or in combined cases that could be because the more influence the Uzumaki gained, the better it would be for him to be able to move the resources he needed for the reconstruction of his beautiful Yuzashio. The next day Naruto had gotten up for the next day where he would have to attend the Ninja Academy for 5 days until graduation, and would be paired with 2 others to form a genin team until he rose to Chunin. It would undoubtedly be a great nuisance, but a key point in which Hiruzen facilitated his plan was to be able to approach the future heirs of the clans so he could extract very good information in addition to perhaps who knows how to seduce one of the heiresses or anger an idiot, and then teach him a lesson about who is really in charge. No doubt Naruto would find many different ways to have fun during these 5 days so as not to get bored. Now that he had some meat for breakfast, because Naruto had a serious predatory sense, and not just in a kind of psychological party. Naruto almost always behaved as if he were a real fox, but now the Uzumaki took off his clothes to go take a shower of very cold water. Now the scarlet hair dressed putting on black Anbu pants, while now he put on an entakunai mesh shirt at the same time as a complete black long-sleeved suit to hide all the scars and tattoos he carries. His mercenary gloves with enhanced space with metal knuckles that were not noticed due to how thin the metal was in addition to all his equipment, and scrolls for Fuinjutsu that he always carried. Naruto Uzumaki undoubtedly looked not only like a true bad boy but like that mercenary with whom you never wanted to fight because his attitude was only a compliment to his suit to intimidate anyone who wanted to mess with him. Grabbing his things while the Uzumaki whirlpool stood out on his back, he was now heading to the academy with the intention of unleashing all the evil possible among the new generations and thus be able to contaminate the garbage dump that he once considered home. If yesterday, all the women who saw him fell in love, today they fainted between wet dreams caused when he crossed his sight with theirs anywhere in the village. Without a doubt the illusion of the fox's charm with a little Kurama hormones enhanced with Maton caused havoc wherever Naruto went with the opposite hex. Very soon Naruto arrived in front of the academy where everyone looked at him with some doubt because they had never seen him before in the academy, but the women did not complain because they had a new prince in the academy apparently and much better than a certain emo Uchiha that the Uzumaki would soon meet. Besides, the bad boy look he gave was more mysterious and dark while attracting more women who wanted to know more about him. He walked a few minutes to the second floor where he followed the hallway until he saw the number of the classroom where he would have classes. He knocked on the door while a chunin with a scar on his face opened the door while he let him in and silenced the boys in the classroom in a very peculiar way. Irika, now that you are quiet, today you will have a new classmate who will graduate in your class in 5 days, but since he has to socialize, well, he is here before you. Can you introduce yourself, huh? Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, heir to Yuzushiogakure and former mercenary, that's all. Cadena Alimentisha. It was that wise man who discovered, or rather realized, that the strong always triumph over the weak, the law of nature being very clear. The weak were those stragglers, sick, or poor, who lacked the strength, will, or effort to climb a step in the food chain, because only the strongest remained at the top of the chain, outstripping the weak. Every country, every city, and every town and every place had a supposedly established food chain. However, there were times when an unknown variable, a monster that destroys the balance and changes everything, could appear. The land of fire was falling into a shadow, and now that monster had arrived in Konoha. Only a week had passed and the effects of the change were already beginning to be felt like small tremors that cracked the established order, and where darkness was settling in. For civilians, a wild beast had come to their homes and they could not defend themselves from anything. Many shinobi, as well as civilians, were now drowning in their own fears and despair when the fox's claws began to grow and later trap them. It only took the first day at the academy to leave its mark clear, and very soon we would remember that moment, but we must also remember everything else that has happened this week. First, as we already mentioned, it happened at the academy, then from there, the redhead had to return to the Hokage Tower since he was summoned by the Hokage there. He received everything he owed from his new home in the Konoha clan zone. From that point on, from the next day until today, Naruto quickly earned the hatred and fear of the merchants of the Uzumaki district, who had to pay everything they owed in debts and a new tribute of high taxes in addition to the basic land rent that increased. but they could not do anything since it was one of the best areas for commerce in the village. The Uzumaki's income from the taxes he was earning in just this week and what he got with Hamura's death allowed him to create and expand his own company, which would now be the cover for his next operations. Uzumaki's power was feared by civilians who saw their businesses in danger, seeing how the boy forced all the merchants in their districts to do two things. First, he would earn a fixed royalty on all products sold, and second, he also recommended lowering prices somewhat in order to increase customer demand. From that moment on, many hated him and others feared him, but very few began to feel respect for the young teenager who was making them rich even though his pockets were now leaking. Mansion Uzumaki. The sun was just rising in the village of Konoha, and in the district of noble clans there was a huge mansion where inside a young teenager was getting up with a big demonic smile on his face as he remembered what day it was today. Just a week ago he had arrived in Konoha and had to endure the bucking academy for future ninjas that was truly total shit. Hiruzen's weakness for peace and his pacifist philosophy of forgiveness was something that slowly ruined this village. Corrupt shinobi who abused their power, civilians who did whatever they pleased in the village regardless of who suffered the most, and above all he was the village's scapegoat for everything wrong. But he was not here to redeem Sarutobi or do divine justice, but he was here to take revenge and tear all the power of Konoha from within until it was destroyed, and with it the fall of the 4 remaining villages would follow. The redhead then got out of bed and went straight to the bathroom. There was nothing to take off since he never slept with a shred of clothing on. He went straight to the shower and took a refreshing bath until he was only in a towel and went out to the balcony of his room. From there he could see a clear view of the village and everything it had to give him. His plans were just beginning, and with the clear information of the Chunin exams in 6 months, it was the perfect time for his best plans to begin with the end of certain things. Soon this village would be fragile, weak, poisoned and wounded, but when they beg him to save it, he will only end up sinking it further until it is destroyed to the last ash. Its enslaved inhabitants and those clans that survive will be collectible toys that will strengthen the rebirth of the whirlpool, soon, very soon. He got ready with black Anbu pants, a shirt with metallic chains, and over it a black short-sleeved shirt of the same color with the Uzumaki logo, over it a jacket of the same black color with red lines of dark orange contour. Black gloves with subtle fuinjutsu marks on the ends so that when the chakra passes, hidden claws are activated to cut and tear flesh as if they were those of a real fox. The complete outfit hid multiple fuinjutsu seals also to directly extract weapons and other kinds of traps. It might seem that he was unarmed like a sheep, but when they approached, the fox would come out of the thicket of the forest and kill its prey as if it were nothing. All that was left was his graduation today, and soon he would return outside this filthy town where he could move his forces freely again. Naruto just left his mansion while now he was heading to the academy where today would be his graduation, and the bad thing is that he would separate from some of his new toys. How could he not miss those cute toys that he began to love so much, like the Uchiha and Inuzuka heirs who thought they were better than him, but always ended up beaten. There were also the future heiresses who were not bad at all, although they should still mature a little to be to his liking, except for the Hyuga and the Yamanaka, who were not bad at all, except that the last mentioned was a bit of an idiot, but everything reminded him of his first day, or rather his first hour, because then he was suspended for that day for what he did. Flashback. Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, heir to Yuzushiogakure and former mercenary. Irika, Ito ex-mercenary? At your age, don't you think you're playing around a bit? Naruto, playing? For you, playing means feeling the lives of men slipping away as blood flows from their deep, open wounds. You see, Baka-sensei, it's in those moments when you truly get to know the people you're killing. I mean, if I killed your friends and family, I'd see their true faces and know them better than you have in all the time you've known them. But you don't know that, right? You sound like a virgin who hasn't yet tasted human blood, Sasuke. And you sound like a lying dope who hasn't done anything he's saying. You're just a clown trying to believe something big. Sakura, Sasuke-kun is absolutely right. You're probably just some random guy thinking he's all that, and that Yuzushio is probably some place you made up. Ino, the big forehead is right. You probably just want to look better than Sasuke-kun. Although he is somewhat handsome and dark, I think I like him. Kiba, ha 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 ha, he's just a new clown. He could never take on an alpha like me, Naruto. Oh, we have kids here who doubt me. Well, no problem, soon they will know their place. Sasuke, HMMP, stop bragging because you're nobody and neither are the Uzumaki. Naruto, say that again if you have the balls. Kiba, you didn't hear Omega. Surely your clan is made up of pure Omegas and bitches waiting for an alpha to claim them all. Sluts like the one who gave birth to you for sure. Those words dug deep into the mind and body of the redhead, who got quite angry while his chakra was rising and his eyes reddened with his iris slitted, cursing the few civilians that were in that class, including the red-haired one, while the blonde member of a clan felt some attraction to that dangerous look. The Hyuga girl watched all this carefully with a little fear, but blushed as she remembered the boy who helped her in the past, now so different, so dark, so sensual in a certain way, because power attracts, and a powerful dark boy was a magnet for intelligent and strong women. Naruto's nails lengthened like claws, and the next thing that was seen was his teacher trying to calm things down, but when he placed one of his hands on one of Naruto's shoulders, things were ruined for the ninja with the scar on his face. The first thing Iruka felt was a horrible pain in his hand as he felt a crushing pressure on it. Then his wrist followed as he felt it break into several pieces, and the pain of what Naruto was doing to him made him kneel on the ground. With his face to Naruto's body, he just looked at him in disgust until he slammed his kick into Iruka's chest until he left him framed on the classroom blackboard with most of his ribs broken and some damage to his spine that hopefully wouldn't leave him paralyzed for life with Konoha's precarious medical situation after Tsunade Senju's departure. Now that the hindrance was under control, it was time to take the trash out of his classroom, although if he didn't expect resistance it wouldn't surprise him, since they were spoiled little children who still didn't know anything about the real world other than being pampered, and that if they didn't grow up they would end up dead if they weren't really lucky. Sasuke, believing himself to be an elite even without having his famous Jujutsu that his clan had, launched himself head-on against the redhead, who only smiled as he grabbed his attacker's arm, throwing him down the steps of the hall, causing him to fall directly at his feet. Before even getting up, the Uzumaki kicked him in the face, breaking his nose and mouth at the same time, while he suffered from a slight whip that, if it had been stronger, could have broken his neck. From there the Uchiha, somewhat confused by the contusion due to the blow, tried to get up, but a blow back to his face added to a kick in the stomach took out all the air he had, and before even finishing, falling into the world of unconsciousness. He gave him a new knee to the blow that would disfigure his face a little. By the final moment he simply grabbed him by the wrist while using it to spin and spin and spin again until he let go, dislocating his shoulder from the kinetic force until he broke the window and fell 3 stories to the academy courtyard, while blood escaped from his body from the wounds caused by the glass. Everyone in the room looked out the window, worried about Sasuke, as well as lifeguards from the academy, that is, his teachers, alerted and worried about the last Uchiha of Konoha, went to his rescue, but then left a group of defenseless civilians and excuses for future ninjas alone with a terrifying fox who saw a very scared puppy. The 13-year-old former mercenary only took a few steps forward as he climbed step by step. Each person in his path moved out of the way so as not to be a hindrance to this relentless monster who was the same age as them. Kiba was trembling, scared. The people around him left him alone against the window without realizing for having tried to escape his future punishment, but it was too late. Naruto rolled up his sleeve a little, revealing a tattoo that turned out to be a Fuinjutsu mark, with which he pulled out a kunai that he stuck in the center of Kiba's palm, making him scream in pain while his puppy Akamaru hid under the desk. Kiba's screams filled the classroom and terrified everyone, but that wasn't enough for Naruto, who slowly pulled the kunai from the Inuzuka's hand as blood came out and stained the desk as the kunai moved over the muscles and tendons of the hand, only worsening the damage. From there Kiba was held by his head in the rear region. Naruto, with his grip tightened in his victim's hair, only hit him repeatedly against the desk over and over again, while the brunette's forehead and nose bled, but that wasn't enough. When he wanted to stop everything, the redhead kicked the back of both knees one after the other, leaving him kneeling at the level of the desk. Naruto slammed his face head-on against the wooden desk, breaking his mouth and knocking out some of Kiba's teeth, who only cried as he had urinated in terror and was still kneeling in his own urine. To finish, Naruto just grabbed one of the pieces of glass and stuck it in his face right where he had the marks of his clan, cutting and tearing his cheeks to make crooked marks that would remain as scars if the boy survived. something that he didn't care much about, and in the end he also threw it out the window as if it was nothing. After that day he was suspended for several days, although Hiruzen did not want that because he believed that if Naruto met those of his age he could soften and return to the path of good. Unfortunately it could not be like that. Suminazuka, Kiba's mother as well as head of his clan, wanted to protest and seek justice for her son against Naruto, but did not achieve anything concrete. The redhead was part of a noble clan of the Leaf and would soon be the leader of that clan. Second, now he was supported by the Hokage's advisors. Third, was collecting a very large fortune quickly greater than what his inheritance already was, so purchasing power was not to be held against him, and last but least, his own clan begged him not to do anything against him because they were afraid of the demon boy. Because if he had enough balls to do that to a clan heir and come out well, what would become of these poor fools if they got in his way? Nothing good. With this week Naruto had made clear his rising power in Konoha in such a short time, because this boy was not here for games, he was here to win properly and in any way he could. Then flashback. I see you very happy, Naruto-sama. Is there something you are remembering perhaps? Naruto. Oh Kabuto, I see you're back and you're in the village again. Tell me, do you have something for me? Kabuto. I already have the information that Naruto-sama asked me for, and what do you plan to do? Naruto. You know this place isn't safe, Kabuto. Just do what you have to do with Mizuki, but for the rest I want you to be at the Uzumaki mansion tomorrow at sunset. I'll have to send you to do some things. Kabuto. As Naruto-sama orders, going his way, Academia Shinobi. At this moment Naruto Uzumaki was finishing the knowledge test to graduate to Genin. Something totally absurd, because although he didn't have to be an idiot, since what good would this do to kill enemies or set a trap for them? The answer would be absolutely nothing. Right now he saw how Mizuki was staring at him, so when he finished the test she raised her hand to leave while whispering some words that only the white-haired man understood very well, while nodding slightly. One thing that didn't surprise Naruto was the absence of Kiba and Sasuke from the Genin promotion exam. Most likely they would still be in the hospital, so there wouldn't be much else to do but continue forward, nor would he care in the least about those hindrances. 40 minutes later, a little more or a little less, the other applicants from his class began to leave, where they had to take Kunai and ninja star throwing tests, where obviously those belonging to clans performed better than the stupid children of civilians. In the end they had to test a family jutsu or one from the academy. Whatever, it didn't matter, and he paid less attention to the male taijutsu test since everyone in front of him gave up, so he won all the fights by surrender. But he saw a small potential of darkness in a certain air that he liked, while a vile smile took over his face to the fear of those closest to him. The same was true in female taijutsu, although he was surprised to see that the Hyuga held back so as not to do too much damage to her rivals. And also the blonde Kunoichi, who a week ago was an obsessed fangirl, a little more focused today, reaching the finals, beating the pink-haired girl herself. Anyway, all of this really bored him, and he didn't give a damn, so when he received his ninja headband, he left with nothing else to do. Only this time he wouldn't really go alone because someone was following him. The Uzumaki already knew who this person was, but he decided to miss out because he wanted to know what intention this person had with him. He let himself be led, following his path to the upper part of the village where his mansion was, and right at the door, he stopped as the barrier fell and both doors opened in a heavenly manner, as if he were some kind of god entering his kingdom. He simply sighed and wanted to know what propelled her to follow him. Naruto, what are you doing following me? Don't you know that if I didn't know it was you, you'd be dead already? So answer me, Yamanaka Ino? Ino, Kakamkoko Kokumu? Naruto. I feel the chakra. It's impossible for someone to hide from me. Serious but calm. Ino Yuyu. Naruto, yes? Ino, I'm very curious about you, Naruto-kun. You're very mysterious but also strong, somewhat sadistic, dark, impatient, and at first I didn't believe you, but I've been watching you all this week, and they also called you the famous ex-mercenary as well as Kitsune assassin or something like that, right? Naruto, you've got the idea about me more or less, though it's still incomplete. However, I'm surprised that beneath that fangirl exterior and that amazing body of yours, there's a great future for a kunoichi besides. Ino, also? Curious, Naruto, besides being a good lover. Ino, quiet and blushing. Naruto, do you want to come in? Ino, hey.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.